Important update about YouTube playlists. Hey everyone. We've received many messages asking why our YouTube playlists aren't showing up. Do we create YouTube playlists? Yes, we absolutely do. So why can't you see them? Honestly, we're not sure. We've been in contact with YouTube support for several months now, but we still haven't received a clear answer or solution. After much discussion, our team has decided to take matters into our own hands. We believe the issue might be related to the number of playlists we've created on a single channel, possibly too many. Our solution? We're launching 2 additional YouTube channels, giving us a total of 3. This way, we can organize our audiobooks better and avoid the playlist visibility issue in the future. This change only affects our YouTube audience. If you're a patron supporter, you can still access all our audiobooks by visiting the collection menu on Patreon. Thanks so much for your time and continued support. Happy listening. For this request, Byakuya had no reason to refuse. Even if Shino might eventually leave the organization, the rewards would not be returned. An opportunity to exploit the system was too good to pass up. Snapping back from his wandering thoughts, Byakuya heard the familiar system notification sound. Shino has joined Akatsuki. You have obtained Dark Medical Ninjutsu, Body Revival Jutsu. Sky Ninja Village has joined Akatsuki. You have received kunai gun manufacturing data, aircraft manufacturing data, and basic chakra fragments. Chapter 256, The Reward from the Hidden Sky Village. Upon seeing the rewards of Dark Medical Ninjutsu and Body Revival Jutsu, Byakuya was momentarily stunned. However, through the system prompts and the memories in his mind, he quickly understood the purpose of these 2 secret techniques. In simple terms, both jutsus enhance the upper limit of physical strength while also offering some healing abilities and immunity to minor injuries. For Byakuya, who possessed traces of Azura's bloodline, these techniques served as the proverbial cherry on top. Currently, his healing capabilities might not match monsters like the late-game Orochimaru or Six Paths Obito and Madara, but they were likely on par with the first Hokage, Hashirama Senju. It seemed that, compared to farming resources in Hidden Rain Village, directly recruiting new members proved to be a faster way to earn rewards. However, the rewards from smaller villages like the Hidden Sky Village and the Land of Hot Water were still quite limited. Combined, they were no match for someone like Nagato, who possessed the Rinnegan. Clearing his thoughts, Byakuya shifted his attention to the conventional rewards, such as kunai gun jutsus. These rewards wouldn't directly enhance his strength. Even crafting the chakra armor and kunai gun wouldn't give him a significant edge in battles against other Kage-level fighters. Instead, their greatest utility lay in boosting the overall strength of the Akatsuki organization. Although Geinin and Chunin only contributed modestly to the prosperity score, every bit added up. Their collective efforts significantly enhanced the organization's prosperity. His unique jutsus and bloodline limits stemmed from the elites under his command, Jonin and Kage-level fighters. Still, his foundational power was built upon the accumulation of efforts from ordinary ninjas. While he hadn't yet reached the level of a super Kage, he was virtually invincible at the Kage level. After calming his wandering thoughts, Byakuya stepped out of the guest room and encountered Kyoki Kazuhana in her traditional kimono. Compared to half a month ago, she had shed much of her youthful innocence and gained a more mature and composed demeanor. In the 2 weeks since defeating Dodo Kazuhana, Toki, with the assistance of Konan and Sandayu, had taken control of the Land of Snow and officially become its daimyo. Although Koki lacked experience in governance, Sandayu and the Akatsuki organization had pledged their support. Until she came of age, they would help her manage the nation, gradually returning authority to her. "Good morning, Byakuya-sama." Koki greeted him quickly as she spotted him. Byakuya smiled and nodded. "Good morning. How does it feel to officially become the daimyo? Is it tougher than you imagined?" Koki let out a weary sigh, her fatigue evident. "It's definitely harder than before, but it's nothing compared to what you handle, Byakuya-sama." Byakuya's lips twitched slightly. In truth, he didn't manage much at all. The true powerhouses in the ninja world, though often the nominal leaders of their villages, seldom bothered with administrative affairs. For instance, Nagato of the Akatsuki, the 4th Raikage of Hidden Clouds Village, and even the first Hokage during his era were prime examples. They were figureheads with decision-making authority but delegated the day-to-day governance. The reason was simple: training to become stronger consumed too much mental energy, leaving little time for managing trivial matters. Unless a ninja chose to forego personal growth, dedicating themselves entirely to politics, they would inevitably become a mere politician vying for power, not a warrior on the battlefield. After offering a few words of encouragement, Byakuya brushed past Koki and headed to the office. As he walked away, Koki looked at his back, deep in thought. She was no longer the naive girl she had been 2 weeks ago. With a better understanding of the ninja world, she realized just how renowned Byakuya's name was. A ninja capable of going toe-to-toe with a Raikage at under 20 years old. This suggested that Byakuya might surpass the 5 Kage in the future. Given his age, he could remain a dominant figure on the chessboard for decades to come. For the Land of Snow, having such a powerhouse as their protector was nothing short of a blessing. In recent days, she had conversed with emissaries from Hidden Rain Village and learned about Akatsuki's ideals. Under their leadership, Hidden Rain Village had undergone a miraculous transformation. If the Land of Snow could achieve similar results under Akatsuki, would it matter if they became a vassal state? Compared to the honor of being a daimyo, she cared more about improving the lives of her people. If possible, she would have relinquished her position to pursue her dream of becoming an actress. But that was impossible. Byakuya needed her to remain as the Land of Snow's daimyo. Sandayu needed her too, as did the people of the Land of Snow. Later, Byakuya visited Conan's room, finding her engrossed in work. Noticing the approaching footsteps, Conan glanced up and frowned slightly. Byakuya, the Land of Snow's finances are in complete disarray. Dodo Kazuhana funneled most of the budget into researching chakra armor. While assisting Sandayu with the nation's affairs, Conan, who had a keen sense of financial matters, quickly identified the source of their fiscal troubles. Byakuya chuckled. If he hadn't done that, we wouldn't have a complete set of chakra armor technology. Conan's expression softened at his words. He was right. Without Dodo's obsession, the Land of Snow would never have developed such advanced chakra armor technology. However, his approach of exploiting the nation's resources was ultimately unsustainable. Continuing with the topic, Byakuya asked, "How's the transfer of the chakra armor technology going?" "Yahiko has sent the 6 Paths of Nagato to retrieve it. They'll arrive at the village soon." After a brief pause, Conan seemed to recall something and asked, "By the way, Byakuya, are you really committed to protecting the Land of Snow? Akatsuki's influence doesn't fully extend here yet." Byakuya nodded slightly. "For the safety of the Land of Rain, we must include the Land of Snow in our sphere of influence. It provides a secure rear base. The oil and gas resources underground are also essential for developing the village's industry. Besides, isn't Akatsuki's purpose to help more people experience the beauty of peace? Without us, the Land of Snow would eventually fall into the hands of another ambitious figure." Conan nodded in agreement. Previously, she had despised the major ninja villages for their disregard for smaller nations. But now that the Land of Rain had grown into a major power, she understood. She couldn't stop other large villages from exploiting small ones, but she could ensure the safety of those within Akatsuki's territory. Chapter 257, The Spy's Fate, Part 1. After the situation in the Land of Snow fully stabilized, Byakuya and Conan began their journey back to Hidden Rain Village. When the two arrived at the Land of Snow's port, the nation's reward for their efforts came belatedly. Compared to the profits from their conquest of the Sky Ninja Village, the reward from the Land of Snow was pitifully small. Aside from a few ice-style techniques that could only be used in polar conditions, the only other reward was fragments of chakra crystals. At first, Byakuya was puzzled, but he quickly figured it out. Nearly all of the snow ninja under the Land of Snow's banner had been annihilated by him and Conan, leaving the nation with few capable combatants. Although Dodo Kazuhana had some skill, his death in the prison of the Land of Snow, possibly due to mental collapse, had left both Princess Koki Kazuhana and Sandayu Asami deeply regretful. On the way back, Byakuya chose not to take a direct ship route to the eastern Land of Fire. Instead, he decided to disembark in the Land of Earth to travel through it for a while and settle some arrangements from 5 years ago. Though Conan found his decision strange, she didn't ask too many questions. She was accustomed to Byakuya's enigmatic nature. As their journey through the Land of Earth deepened, Conan began to sense something was off. If they were truly returning to the Land of Rain, they should have been following the coastline. Yet, Byakuya led her further into the heart of the Land of Earth. Unable to contain her curiosity, Conan finally asked, "Byakuya, if we continue for 2 more days, we'll be at Hidden Stone's village. Don't tell me you're planning to challenge the village." Hidden Stone's village's Sushi Kage, Onoki of both scales, has mastered particle style, a Kekkai Toda. He's not someone to take lightly. It's better if we avoid provoking him for now. Byakuya's expression turned a bit pale. Did she really think he was someone who enjoyed stirring up trouble? As a transmigrant, Byakuya was well aware of particle style's power. It was the only Kekkai Toda in the original timeline and could instantly obliterate even Suzuno. It was one of the most destructive techniques in the ninja world. If not for Onoki's frail body and the inflexibility of particle style, the Sushi Kage would have already achieved legendary status. While he might not have risen to the level of a god of shinobi like the first Hokage, he would have easily surpassed Hanzo of the Salamander, becoming 3/4 of a god. After all, The only way to reliably counter particle style was with particle style itself, or techniques that absorbed chakra. Taking a deep breath, Byakuya explained, I have a contact in Hidden Stones village. I came here to meet my subordinate and take care of some old business. Old business? Conan's eyes filled with doubt. What kind of old business could someone Byakuya's age have? And when had he even planted a spy in Hidden Stones village? As expected, Byakuya had plans for the village. She could only hope he wouldn't cause any earth-shattering trouble this time. Before long, Byakuya and Conan reached the rocky terrain outside Hidden Stones village. Using the highland rocks of the Land of Earth as cover, they observed the barren village from afar. Hidden Stones village, the hidden village of the Land of Earth, was built on the highlands. Its architecture was rugged and utilitarian, designed to maximize every resource available. Because of its harsh geographic environment, Hidden Stones village had always been an aggressor during the Ninja World Wars, targeting resource-rich nations like the Land of Fire and the Land of Grass. In contrast, the Land of Rain and the Land of Wind had never piqued Hidden Stones village's interest, largely due to their meager resources. Even in recent years, Hidden Stones village had not ceased its activities in neighboring small countries, constantly preparing to expand its influence. After patiently lying in wait in the rocky terrain for a while, a ninja wearing an Hidden Stones village headband quietly approached Byakuya and Conan's position. Just as Conan was about to act and eliminate the stone ninjas, Byakuya stopped her. Conan, you're always saying I'm too impulsive and extreme, but you don't seem to hold back either. Conan's expression shifted slightly. She glanced at Byakuya with dissatisfaction, clearly annoyed. At this moment, the stone ninjas removed his headband, revealing an exceptionally delicate face. He smiled at Byakuya and Conan and said, Lord Byakuya, I assume this is Lady Conan? Dim. Lady Conan is even younger and more beautiful than I imagined. She looks no older than 16. Hearing the compliment, Conan's expression softened. Although she was not yet 20, she was already 18. As always, a woman appreciated being thought of as younger. Byakuya glanced at the stone ninjas and spoke casually, alright, Kabuto Yakushi. Report the intelligence you've gathered recently. Staying here for long isn't safe. That's right, the stone ninjas was none other than Kabuto Yakushi, the spy Byakuya had cultivated in Hidden Leaf village. 5 years ago, Kabuto had been brought under Byakuya's control. Following Byakuya's orders, he infiltrated Denzo's root organization and diligently gathered information about both Hidden Leaf village and root. Byakuya's knowledge of Hidden Leaf village largely came from two sources, White Zetsu and Kabuto Yakushi. Kabuto had never failed him, consistently delivering valuable intelligence that allowed Byakuya to stay informed about Hidden Leaf village's inner workings without setting foot in the village. After the war between Hidden Leaf village and Hidden Clouds village ended, Kabuto was assigned a mission that took him to Hidden Stones village. For the past 2 years, he had been stationed there, continuing to send vital information back to Byakuya. Kabuto nodded in acknowledgement of Byakuya's words and began his report. The first piece of intelligence concerned Hidden Stones village's internal affairs. The 4th and 5th Jinchuriki, Rashi of the 4 Tails and Han of the 5 Tails, remained at odds with Onoki. The Sushi Kage's authoritarian leadership left the two deeply dissatisfied, yet they could do little about it. Onoki, as the disciple of the 2nd Sushi Kage, had ruled Hidden Stones village for decades. In the eyes of the stone ninjas, his influence was second only to the 1st Raikage's legendary status. Confronting such a formidable leader, the Jinchuriki could only express their dissatisfaction by wandering aimlessly within the Land of Earth. This behavior aligned perfectly with Byakuya's knowledge from his previous life. In the original timeline, had these two Jinchuriki not developed a habit of leaving the village, it would have been much harder for the Akatsuki to capture them. Unlike the weaker or less experienced Jinchuriki of the 6 Tails and 7 Tails, Rashi and Han were exceptionally powerful, even without the support of their tailed beasts. The second piece of information pertained to a new prodigy in Hidden Stones village. Over the past 2 years, a young boy had emerged with remarkable talent. Despite only being enrolled in the Ninja Academy for 2 years, he had already achieved the strength of a Geinin and even a Chunin. This boy showed incredible aptitude in Earth style and had even mastered explosion style at such a young age. Though not a KK Genkai, explosion style had devastating destructive potential. If given time, this prodigy could very well grow into a Kage-level shinobi. However, this genius was a constant headache for Onoki. The boy caused chaos throughout Hidden Stones village with his endless explosions, leaving the entire village in disarray. The Sushi Kage had no choice but to take him as a student and impose strict disciplinary measures, including frequent confinement, to curb his antics. This prodigy's name? Deodara. Hearing the name, Byakuya froze for a moment, then a faint smile appeared on his lips. The name Deodara was all too familiar. This boy would one day become a stalwart member of the Akatsuki in the original timeline, a model employee and an unstoppable demolition expert. Chapter 258, The Spy's Fate, Part 2, Deidara, a genius youth from Hidden Stones Village, mastered the secret technique of explosion style at a young age. With this ability, he could craft various bombs from clay and even achieve the power of flight. If all had gone as expected, Deidara might have married Kirotsuchi and paved his way to becoming the fourth Sushi Kage. However, fate played a cruel trick on him. During a rebellious escapade to avoid confinement, Deidara encountered an Uchiha who would alter his destiny forever. After losing to Itachi Uchiha, Deidara joined the Akatsuki, severing any ties to the position of Sushi Kage. Pulling his wandering thoughts back, Byakuya resumed gathering other critical pieces of information, such as the economic state of Hidden Stones Village and its recent policies. Although these details lacked immediate tactical value, their strategic significance was undeniable. Kabuto nodded, recounting his observations from within Hidden Stones Village. By the end of the briefing, Byakuya had a clear understanding of the village's current condition. After 5 years of recuperation and recovery, Hidden Stones Village had not yet returned to its peak strength from before the Third Great Ninja War. Still, its power could not be underestimated as it retained the capacity to ignite a new conflict. Instructing Konan to document the intelligence, Byakuya fixed his gaze on Kabuto and asked, "Kabuto, has Denzo assigned any new tasks recently?" Hearing Byakuya mention Denzo, Konan paused in mild surprise. She was no stranger to that name. Denzo, a high-ranking official of Hidden Leaf Village and an enemy of the Akatsuki, was infamous. That Byakuya had managed to plant a spy within Denzo's root organization astounded her. Nevertheless, Konan harbored no objections to Byakuya's infiltration tactics. Denzo and Jiraiya, her former teacher, were political adversaries. Denzo's collusion with Henzo years ago had nearly wiped out the Akatsuki. Were it not for his constant presence within Hidden Leaf Village, they might have sent someone to assassinate him long ago. Kabuto extended his tongue, revealing the small but unmistakable cursed tongue eradication seal. This unique mark, a signature curse of root, prevented its bearers from leaking information. It was this very seal on Kabuto that barred him from divulging Root's secrets. After a moment of contemplation, Byakuya formed hand seals and pressed them onto Kabuto's shoulder. Kabuto felt a surge of chakra flow through him, and the cursed tongue eradication seal was dispelled. Realizing this, Kabuto's gaze toward Byakuya filled with admiration. Byakuya-sama's abilities exceeded his expectations. Even a high-level seal like the cursed tongue eradication seal was no match for him. Noticing Kabuto's expression, Byakuya chuckled. The cursed tongue eradication seal is derived from Uzumaki sealing techniques. Breaking it is no challenge for me. Now, tell me about Root and Denzo. What's Denzo been up to recently? Kabuto hesitated before replying, Byakuya-sama, I haven't returned to Root in a long time. I'm unaware of its current situation. After completing this mission, I'll be able to provide you with more detailed information. What mission? Byakuya's eyes flickered with interest. He had a hunch about Kabuto's assignment but feigned curiosity. Kabuto answered without hesitation, it's a mission to eliminate a traitor. A Root spy embedded in Hidden Stones Village has turned rogue, and Denzo has tasked me with taking care of him. As expected, Byakuya thought. He retrieved a water bottle and handed it to Kabuto. Do you have any information or evidence about this traitor's defection? Taking the bottle, Kabuto shook his head. Denzo didn't provide any intelligence. He only instructed me to seize the opportunity during the next rendezvous to deal with the traitor. Byakuya-sama, do you think there's something suspicious about this mission? Of course, there's an issue, Byakuya analyzed calmly. If this traitor had genuinely betrayed Hidden Leaf Village, Denzo would have given you the necessary information. Instead, he told you nothing. He paused before continuing, moreover, this Root Ninja's mission was the same as yours, gathering intelligence in the land of Earth. You've never interacted before, which in itself is suspicious. Unless Denzo anticipated the betrayal from the beginning and deliberately assigned you to eliminate them. Kabuto fell into deep thought as he listened to Byakuya's reasoning before he quickly grasped the gravity of the situation. Being naturally perceptive, Kabuto soon realized the severity of the matter. Based on Byakuya-sama's analysis, Denzo's mission was riddled with suspicious points. Either Denzo intended to use Kabuto to deal with a ninja who had shown disloyalty to him, or, more troublingly, the so-called traitor to be eliminated was Kabuto himself. Otherwise, Denzo would have provided sufficient information, at the very least specifying the target of the mission. The thought sent a chill down Kabuto's spine. He turned to Byakuya and said earnestly, thank you for the warning, Byakuya-sama. Without your insight, I might have fallen into Denzo's trap. Byakuya smiled and helped Kabuto to his feet. Kabuto, I value your talents greatly. Why would I let you come to harm? Your future holds far more than just this. Kabuto couldn't understand why Byakuya treated him so kindly, but he remained deeply grateful. Without Byakuya's covert support, the orphanage run by the director would have collapsed long ago, and the other children raised there would never have had the chance to lead normal lives. After a brief pause, Kabuto asked, Byakuya-sama, what should I do next? Should I continue the mission or leave with you? Carry on with the mission, Byakuya replied. I want to see exactly who Denzo is targeting. Yes, Byakuya-sama. Kabuto nodded. With Byakuya's guidance, even if the root trader turned out to be as skilled as an elite Jonin, there was no need to fear. Still, a sense of foreboding crept into Kabuto's mind. He had a dreadful hunch about the identity of the target. After meeting with Kabuto, Byakuya and Conan lingered near Hidden Stone's village for several days. While some intelligence could be gathered through hearsay, certain truths required on-site investigation. Byakuya didn't necessarily plan to take action against Hidden Stone's village, but since it was Onoki's domain, it was prudent to prepare. One night, Kabuto contacted Byakuya for another meeting. Upon regrouping, the trio headed to the location where Kabuto was supposed to meet the root trader. The meeting spot was a secret training ground near Hidden Stone's village. Normally off-limits as a restricted area, it served as the perfect rendezvous point. Half an hour later, a shadowy figure wearing a straw hat appeared in the training ground's dimly lit corner. The individual's chakra signature revealed traces of a transformation jutsu, and their movements down the cliffside were practiced and precise. Sensing the person's chakra, Byakuya turned to the anxious Kabuto and remarked with a knowing smile, Kabuto, so this is who Denzo wants you to handle. That old bitch hasn't changed a bit, still as ruthless as ever. Chapter 259, The Spy's Fate, Part 3, She Is. Hearing Byakuya's words, Kabuto's face turned pale, and his breathing grew rapid. He had already deduced the identity of the target. The traitor Denzo wanted him to eliminate was most likely none other than the orphanage director, Nano Yakushi. The reasoning was straightforward. Due to the cursed tongue eradication seal, very few within Root opposed Denzo. Those who did were either people with sensitive identities or individuals even Denzo wouldn't dare provoke. The only exception was the director, who had long since left Root. Once a vital member of Root, the director had achieved great merit during the Second Shinobi World War. However, disillusioned with Denzo's methods, she eventually left the organization. Denzo viewed his Root operatives as tools, and the director's defiance would have undoubtedly angered him. As for why the director had rejoined Root after leaving, Kabuto had already surmised the reason. She likely returned out of concern for his safety. But he hadn't anticipated Denzo's malice to be so twisted, setting up a scheme that would force him and the director into a deadly confrontation. If not for Byakuya's intervention, tonight would have ended with him and the director gravely wounded, or worse, a disastrous outcome too painful to imagine. Hatred for Denzo, and even Hidden Leaf Village, began to simmer in Kabuto's heart. However, with Byakuya's foresight and ability to uncover Denzo's conspiracy, such a tragedy wouldn't occur. Instead, he was about to reunite with the director after 5 long years. Taking a deep breath, Kabuto removed his mask, put on the glasses gifted to him by the director, and stepped toward Nano Yakushi. In his mind, once he revealed his face, the director would immediately recognize him and embrace him with joy. To his shock, Nano pulled out a kunai from her sleeve and, in a flash, lunged at him. Kabuto quickly dodged and blocked the attack, confusion filling his heart. Why didn't the director recognize him? Had 5 years changed his appearance so much that she no longer remembered him? Or had she completely forgotten who Kabuto was? The thought caused a sharp pain in his chest, as if his heart itself was aching. Unable to accept the cruel reality, Kabuto shouted, "Director, have you forgotten me?" Nano ignored his plea, retreating to perch on a large rock nearby. Scanning her surroundings, her gaze locked onto Byakuya and Conan. Her eyes filled with doubt. The mission Denzo assigned her involved only one traitor. Why were there 3 people here? Moreover, the other 2 seemed far too composed, raising an ominous suspicion in her mind. Could it be that the village's traitor had known she would come tonight and had brought reinforcements to capture her alive? The thought made her wary. She wasn't ready to die in Hidden Stone's village. At that moment, Byakuya used the body flicker jutsu to appear beside Nano and Kabuto. His tone was laced with mockery as he addressed Kabuto. "Kabuto, it seems your director has forgotten you. Do you need some time to cry it out and relieve your frustrations?" Seeing Byakuya's speed, Nano sank into despair. She realized escape was impossible. This man was likely one of Hidden Stone's village's high-ranking officials, or at the very least, a member of their assassination unit. Although she bore the title of Wandering Shrine Maiden and served as a special Jonin en route, her combat abilities were far from impressive. She specialized in intelligence gathering, not battle. At best, She could be considered a mediocre chunin in terms of raw combat power. However, upon hearing Kabuto's name, Nano froze. Why would he mention that name? Could this glasses-wearing young man be her adopted child, Kabuto? Her voice trembled as she asked cautiously, "Who are you? Why are you here? And how do you know the name Kabuto?" Byakuya shrugged and answered casually, "You'll have to ask him yourself. He received the same mission as you, to eliminate you." Nano's expression shifted rapidly, disbelief and realization dawning on her. Her gaze fell on Kabuto's glasses, the very pair she had gifted him years ago. Why were they now on someone else? Taking a deep breath, Nano asked carefully, "Are you Kabuto?" Kabuto nodded and began recounting secrets only the two of them would know. He also produced several items to further prove his identity. After repeated confirmations, Nano finally accepted that this young man before her was indeed the child she had raised, her Kabuto. However, the question remained, why was Kabuto here in Hidden Stone's village, and who were the two ninjas standing beside him? Sensing the confusion in Nano Yakushi's eyes, Kabuto quickly explained, "Director, Denzo sent me here. I've been on assignment in Hidden Stone's village for the past 2 years. I never imagined my final mission would involve eliminating you. Denzo also told me this was my last task. It seems he never intended for either of us to survive. I shouldn't have returned to Root." As he spoke, Nano felt a wave of dread wash over her. Her original intent in accepting this mission was to protect Kabuto, but Denzo had given her an assignment to eliminate him. Listening to the exchange between Kabuto and Nano, Konan frowned deeply. She had always considered Denzo an irreconcilable enemy. Given the chance, she would gladly take him down. However, she had believed that their differences were solely ideological. Denzo, though despicable, was a respectable adversary. His ruthless tactics, both in the Hidden Rain village and against other ninja villages, were all part of his vision for Hidden Lee village's future. He was willing to play the villain in the shadows, just as Byakuya was. But to learn that Denzo had gone so far as to pit his own subordinates against one another, this was a betrayal beyond mere politics. This was a direct violation of the Will of Fire, and it revealed just how rotten Hidden Lee village's leadership had become. After exchanging pleasantries with Kabuto, Nano turned her gaze to Byakuya and Konan, then asked Kabuto, "Kabuto, who are these two ninjas with you?" Kabuto hesitated, glancing at Nano before answering in a soft, uncertain voice, "Director, do you remember the extra donations that appeared at the orphanage 5 years ago? Those were from Byakuya. He met with me long before that and even taught me some techniques." "What?" Nano gasped, her eyes widening in shock. "You were in contact with someone outside the orphanage 5 years ago?" Nano stared at Kabuto, feeling as though she no longer understood him. Chapter 260, The Art of Explosion and the Explosion of Art. Kabuto hesitated, unsure whether he should speak. In front of others, he could keep secrets well, but his resolve wavered when it came to the director. Seeing his reaction, Nano refrained from pressing further. Whether Kabuto was a spy infiltrating the orphanage or someone trained there to become one, she was certain their familial bond was genuine. If her questioning would put Kabuto in a difficult position, she decided it was better not to ask. Moreover, after being betrayed by Denzo multiple times, her faith in the Hidden Lee village leadership had completely eroded. If the third Hokage was truly as wise and capable as he was reputed to be, could he really be unaware of Denzo's actions? Perhaps he had even tacitly approved of sacrifices being made to maintain stability. Nano wasn't afraid of sacrifice. The title of Walking Maiden testified to her contributions to Hidden Lee village. What she couldn't accept was being betrayed by the village she had served so diligently. Denzo had even issued an order for her and Kabuto to kill each other. Was this truly the Will of Fire? Pulling herself out of her spiraling thoughts, Nano's gaze shifted to Byakuya and Konan. When Kabuto had mentioned the name Byakuya, it struck her as familiar. After some reflection, she recalled who he was. Byakuya was a former disciple of the demigod Hanzo and had once assisted Hidden Lee village in its war against Hidden Cloud's village. Logically, his relationship with Hidden Lee village as leadership should have been good. Why, then, would he be secretly nurturing Kabuto? Could it be those relations between Hidden Lee village and Hidden Rain village were not as strong as they appeared? After pondering for a moment, Nano approached Byakuya with a faint smile. "Lord Byakuya, thank you for looking after Kabuto. If it weren't for you, I don't know how we would have gotten through today." Byakuya nodded nonchalantly and replied, "It was nothing. But what are your plans now, Miss Nano? Will you return to Hidden Lee village, or defect from the village?" Hearing this, Nano sighed softly. "Since Denzo has issued such an order, I have no reason to remain in the village. But if I defect, it will undoubtedly affect Kabuto and the other children. And so, Lord Byakuya, do you have any suggestions?" Seeing how perceptive Nano was, Byakuya immediately responded, Why not abandon your past identity and join Hidden Rain Village as someone who no longer exists? Unlike Hidden Leaf Village, we of Hidden Rain Village do not betray our comrades. Kabuto chimed in from the side. Director, Lord Byakuya is absolutely right. Haven't you always wanted to start over with a new identity? Hidden Rain Village is your best option. Nano was silent for a few seconds, but her mind was already made up. Given the current circumstances, joining Hidden Rain Village was her only choice. Moreover, the person she cared about most, Kabuto, was already under Byakuya's protection. She had no alternative. Lord Byakuya, I'll be counting on your guidance from now on. As Byakuya extended his hand to welcome her into their ranks, he suddenly sensed danger. Quickly dodging, he narrowly avoided an explosion as flames erupted where he had just stood. Amid the deafening blast, a figure appeared before them. The newcomer wore the uniform of Hidden Stone's village shinobi, with long blonde hair tied in a ponytail. His youthful face was that of defiance, exuding a wild arrogance. Before Byakuya and Conan could react, Nano and Kabuto had already recognized the blonde youth and shouted, Lord Byakuya, he's Deodara, Hidden Stone's village's prodigy. Deodara. Hearing the name, Byakuya narrowed his eyes and began scrutinizing the genius from Hidden Stone's village. Though young, Deodara's chakra levels were comparable to a Chunin's. The explosive clay attack just now would have been difficult for most Geinin or even Chunin to evade. Unfortunately, a genius who has yet to fully mature is still just a genius. Sensing something was off, Deodara's gaze grew wary as he sized up Byakuya and the others, beginning to question their identities. He had escaped from a confinement room and come straight to the training grounds outside the village, hoping to vent his frustrations amidst the mountains and rocks. The explosive clay he had just used was meant as a lesson for the inattentive guards. But now, it seemed these people weren't from the village. Two of them weren't even wearing village forehead protectors, and their behavior was suspicious. They didn't look like good people at all. Could he have stumbled upon a meeting between enemies and spies tonight? Deodara's lips curled into a faint smile. Finally, he had an excuse to unleash his art freely. If this was an enemy infiltration, no matter how much havoc he caused, that old man Nanoki wouldn't reprimand him. Deodara reached into his pouch, retrieving a handful of white clay. He let the mouths on his palms chew the material for a few seconds, infusing it with chakra. Then, shaping the clay into the form of a bird, he directed it to fly straight toward Byakuya. Despite the incoming threat of the explosive clay, Byakuya remained calm, even finding the situation slightly amusing. Back when I was playing with explosive tags, this brat was still wetting his pants, he thought to himself. Deodara laughed as he watched his creation soar through the air. Witness the greatness of my art. My art is an explosion, kaboom. What Deodara didn't expect was for his explosive clay bird to be intercepted midair before it even hit the ground. Surrounding it were dozens of explosive tags, which detonated the bird prematurely in a brilliant flash. The person responsible was none other than Conan. Intrigued by the power of Deodara's explosive clay, she decided to intervene and test this upstart. As the explosion lit up the night sky, the shockwave rippled through the area, causing everyone's clothes to flap violently in the blast's aftermath. Deodara, however, wasn't angered by the interception. Instead, he laughed. So, you're also a ninja who appreciates the artistry of explosions. But when it comes to true talent in art, there's no way you can outshine me. With that, Deodara retrieved even more explosive clay, his face alight with excitement. It had been a long time since he'd encountered another ninja who specialized in explosive techniques, and the blue-haired woman before him was the first in years to truly pique his interest. Conan, on the other hand, felt a twinge of annoyance at Deodara's antics. The reckless enthusiasm reminded her of Byakuya from 5 or 6 years ago. Still, her strength had grown considerably since then, and she was more than capable of handling this problematic youth. With a mere thought, hundreds of explosive tags materialized around her and surged toward Deodara in unison. Her intent was clear, she wanted to subdue Deodara with a demonstration of her own explosive expertise and teach the arrogant young ninja a lesson. In an instant, explosive clay collided with explosive tags, illuminating the darkened landscape with dazzling fireworks. The ground trembled under the force of the successive blasts, each one echoing like a thunderclap across the battlefield. Chapter 261, Byakuya, who respects the elderly and loves the young. As the battle between Deodara and Conan reached a fever pitch, both began using explosive tags and explosive clay without holding back, hoping to determine the ultimate winner through mutual bombardment. The synergy between the two caused the surrounding landscape to be riddled with craters, as if it had endured a war of the shinobi world. Faced with such a scale of combat, Byakuya remained unfazed, having grown accustomed to such spectacles. Moreover, he already knew the outcome of the battle. Although Conan and Deodara currently appeared evenly matched, The reality was that Conan was merely feigning weakness to mislead her opponent. How could she have only a few hundred explosive tags? Carrying tens of thousands of them was standard for her. If Conan truly became intent on killing, Deidara wouldn't last even a minute. Standing nearby, Kabuto and Nano couldn't read Byakuya's thoughts. They were already deeply shaken by the scene of the battle. The way Conan and Deidara fought exceeded their imagination and understanding. Shouldn't battles between shinobi involve casting a few ninjutsu techniques, then engaging in taijutsu to find a flaw in the opponent's defenses and end the fight? In their perception, the scale of the battle between Conan and Deidara was approaching that of the Night of the Ninetales. After more than 10 minutes without a conclusive result, Kabuto cautiously approached Byakuya and asked, "Lord Byakuya, shouldn't we provide support to Lady Conan? Why should we support Conan?" Byakuya glanced at Kabuto, chuckling lightly. "Don't you see that Conan is just playing with Deidara? Deidara is still a child. How could an adult go all out against a child?" Kabuto fell silent. His suggestion seemed to have been unnecessary. But Byakuya's words were utterly exasperating. What did he mean by an adult wouldn't go all out against a child? Byakuya wasn't that much older himself, and he clearly hadn't considered Deidara's feelings. After all, Kabuto had been with Rude for 5 years and still wasn't as strong as Deidara was now. Sensing Kabuto's thoughts, Byakuya spoke earnestly, "Don't be discouraged. I believe you'll surpass Deidara in the future. I trust your talent, you're the kind of shinobi who grows steadily over time." Kabuto nodded, falling into the trap of Byakuya's motivational speech. At that moment, Byakuya suddenly sensed something. Glancing first in the direction of Hidden Stone's village, then at Deidara, who was still fighting Conan, before he turned to Kabuto and Nano. "Kabuto, Nano, Hidden Stone's village's reinforcements are coming. You two should find a place to hide. The upcoming battle isn't something you can participate in." Kabuto and Nano looked toward Hidden Stone's village and solemnly nodded. Considering the scale of the fight between Conan and Deidara, it made sense that Hidden Stone's village would notice. But for Byakuya to stay behind while they fled, did he really intend to take on the entirety of Hidden Stone's village? After Kabuto and Nano left, Byakuya's figure flickered, heading toward Hidden Stone's village. Landing atop a massive boulder, he waited patiently for a few minutes before spotting an elderly figure flying through the sky, scanning the ravaged terrain nervously. The old man was none other than Onoki, the third Sushi Kage of Hidden Stone's village, and one of the shinobi Byakuya respected most in the shinobi world. As Byakuya observed Onoki, the latter noticed him as well. Slowing his flight, Onoki hovered in midair, fixing his gaze on Byakuya. Though Onoki could confirm that this person wasn't from Hidden Stone's village, he couldn't immediately identify him. One thing was certain, anyone appearing outside Hidden Stone's village as borders likely had ill intentions. Descending near Byakuya, Onoki narrowed his eyes. "Unknown shinobi, state your purpose for appearing near Hidden Stone's village. Otherwise, I'll make you regret ever becoming a ninja." Raising his hands, Byakuya waved them lightly and said, "Lord Sushi Kage, don't be so irritable. I'm just touring the land of Earth. I came here because I thought the scenery was nice." Onoki's expression turned peculiar, his face darkening as he replied, "Do you take me for a fool? You're touring the land of Earth and ended up near Hidden Stone's village? And those explosions just now, weren't they your doing? Who are you, and what is your mission?" With an innocent expression, Byakuya explained, "Lord Sushi Kage, I didn't cause any damage, but there was a blonde kid riding a big bird who flew past just now, bombing indiscriminately with something or other." Onoki's face twitched, and his lips curled slightly. A blonde kid, bombing indiscriminately, these traits immediately brought to mind his apprentice, Deidara. Hadn't Deidara just been confined? How had he escaped again? This time, once Deidara was caught, Onoki resolved to discipline him thoroughly and suppress those troublesome artistic tendencies. Having decided how to deal with Deidara in his mind, Onoki turned his attention back to Byakuya. Flying toward him, Onoki said sternly, "Stop dodging my question. You still haven't clearly explained your identity. You want to know my identity? Why not just ask directly?" Byakuya stood up from the boulder and said calmly, "I'm Byakuya, the leader of the Akatsuki, the second in command of Hidden Rain Village, and a disciple of Hanzo. If there's nothing else, I'll be on my way." He added with a faint smile, "You wouldn't want to provoke a conflict between Hidden Stone's village and Hidden Rain Village by acting against me, would you?" As he spoke, Byakuya patted the dust off his clothing, looking ready to leave at any moment. Onoki's expression fluctuated as he processed Byakuya's words. Flying to block Byakuya's path, he suddenly recalled who Byakuya was. Aside from being a disciple of Hanzo and a high-ranking figure in Hidden Rain Village, Byakuya had also clashed directly with the 4th Raikage during the war between Hidden Lee Village and Hidden Clouds Village. Onoki was well aware of the fourth Raikage's strength, undeniably one of the top-tier powerhouses in the shinobi world. For Byakuya to hold his own against the fourth Raikage, even briefly, his power couldn't be underestimated. For such a formidable figure to appear near Hidden Stone's village without prior notice, it was highly suspicious. Perhaps he was here to gather intelligence or even lay the groundwork for undermining Hidden Stone's village in the future. After blocking Byakuya, Onoki narrowed his eyes and said, "Byakuya, I already told you, don't think you can just brush off my questions. The explosions might not have been your doing, but your presence here still raises too many questions. I need answers." Byakuya furrowed his brows and said, "Lord Tsuchikage, I've already told you the commotion had nothing to do with me. Why are you so persistent? Do you actually want to find me?" he asked, his tone laced with playful defiance. "I'm someone who respects the elderly and cherishes the young. I don't make a habit of bullying old men. If I accidentally hurt you, Lord Tsuchikage, it might trigger a war between Hidden Stone's village and Hidden Rain village. That would undo the hard-earned peace we've achieved. Respect the elderly. Not bully old men." Hearing Byakuya's words, Onoki's face turned red with anger. He was the Tsuchikage of Hidden Stone's village, one of the 5 great shinobi villages, and among the most powerful and influential shinobi in the world. Sure, he was advanced in age, but being outright referred to as an old man was infuriating. This, he could not tolerate. Chapter 262, Dust Style, Detachment of the Primitive World. Provoked by Byakuya's taunts, Onoki initiated an attack. He first descended to the ground, forming hand seals before slamming his palms onto the earth. Instantly, he lifted a massive boulder weighing several tons and hurled it violently toward Byakuya's position. With a swift movement, Byakuya vanished and easily evaded the falling rock. He reappeared atop another boulder, his face brimming with mockery. Onoki's expression darkened. Without hesitation, he performed the rock fist jutsu, encasing his arms in a dense layer of stone armor. With enhanced strength, he lunged at Byakuya. A loud boom echoed as Onoki's punch struck Byakuya, sending him hurtling back dozens of meters. Onoki's lips curled into a satisfied smile. Mastery of the lightened boulder jutsu allowed him to decrease the weight of the rock for swift movement and then amplify gravity upon impact, multiplying the destructive force of his punches. Onoki thought to himself, after taking a hit like this, even if he isn't dead, he should be incapacitated. Not many shinobi can withstand my strikes. However, Byakuya, who had been knocked back, slowly stood up, dusting himself off. With a calm yet playful tone, he said, "Lord Tsuchikage, your punch is indeed powerful. But if this is all you've got, I'm afraid it won't be enough to take me down." Onoki's eyes narrowed as he scrutinized Byakuya more seriously. He was well aware of his own strength. If Byakuya had evaded the rock fist jutsu, it would have been understandable. After all, the move wasn't known for its accuracy. But Byakuya had taken the hit head-on and shrugged it off. That was a completely different story. In Hidden Stone's village, few could endure his rock fist jutsu. Besides the Jinchuriki Rashi and Han, the only other person capable was his own son, Kitsuchi. Yet Kitsuchi, despite being a pinnacle-level Jonin, hadn't been entrusted with the role of fourth Tsuchikage. This was partly because he hadn't mastered particle style, which failed to win unanimous support from the other Jonin. Another reason was his reserved and overly cautious personality, making him unfit for leadership. Instead, Onoki had pinned his hopes on Deidara, a young genius, as a potential successor. Shaking off his wandering thoughts, Onoki turned back to Byakuya, feigning composure. "Don't misunderstand. I was merely intrigued by your talent. Why would I use my full strength against a young man?" Byakuya's face twitched slightly. Those words sounded uncomfortably familiar. He had used the same reasoning to describe Deidara earlier. Onoki pressed on. "I'll give you a chance to admit your mistake. Surrender now, and I promise not to harm you." He wasn't lying. Killing Byakuya, the disciple of Hanzo, would irreparably sour relations between Hidden Stone's village and Hidden Rain village, possibly pushing Hidden Rain village into Hidden Lee village's camp. That would block Hidden Stone's village's expansion and make Hidden Lee village an even greater threat. It would be far more advantageous to capture Byakuya and use him to secure benefits from Hanzo, perhaps even an alliance against Hidden Lee village or Hidden Cloud's village. Byakuya, however, chuckled dismissively. "I'll have to decline your generous offer." He had no intention of complying. Meeting Onoki was one of the key objectives of his trip to Hidden Stone's village, and there was no way he'd let this opportunity slip. In a flash, Byakuya vanished and reappeared before Onoki, his blade drawn. The sharp edge sliced through Onoki's robes, but the figure crumbled into chunks of stone, revealing it to be a rock clone. Onoki's face darkened. Though the clone had absorbed the strike, Byakuya's attack proved he possessed the ability to threaten Onoki directly. There was no longer any to hold back. Floating several dozen meters into the air using the lightened boulder jutsu, Onoki brought his hands together, focusing his chakra. Within moments, a dazzling light appeared between his hands, forming into a cuboid-shaped barrier. The barrier, moving at an imperceptible speed, shot toward Byakuya. Recognizing the danger of the dust-style detachment of the primitive world jutsu, Byakuya dodged using the body flicker jutsu. He turned to observe the aftermath. The ground where the particle style struck was perfectly smooth, leaving a seamless pit that silently demonstrated its destructive power. Although the destructive power of particle style was terrifying, it wasn't without counters. The Rinnegan's ability to seal chakra was a perfect counter to particle style, and Byakuya just so happened to possess such an ability. With a decisive thought, Byakuya initiated his counterattack. First, forming hand seals, he summoned a torrent of rushing water, masking his movements. Using the water as a cover, he vanished from Onoki's sight. In the next moment, the ground trembled violently, and thick vines burst forth from the earth. In an instant, the barren, desolate red plateau transformed into a lush forest brimming with life. Onoki's eyes widened in shock, his expression filled with disbelief. Wood style? That technique was lost decades ago. How is it possible for someone to use it now? And not a Hidden Leaf Village shinobi, but someone from Hidden Rain Village? There was no time for further contemplation. Onoki began to move swiftly through the forest, keeping a constant guard against the attacking vines. However, he soon realized the futility of his efforts. While his particle style could easily obliterate the vines, destroying one led to the rapid regrowth of others. They relentlessly sought his position, encroaching faster than he could eliminate them. Onoki grimaced. Unless he could completely eradicate the entire forest in one attack, victory seemed unattainable. Determined, he ascended higher into the sky, his hands clasped together as he gathered chakra. A massive cubic barrier, spanning several dozen meters, materialized in the air. Onoki hurled the barrier toward the ground, where it descended with devastating speed. As the cube struck, a light brighter than the sun erupted, accompanied by a deafening silence. When the brilliance faded, it revealed a massive pit, tens of meters deep. The pit was devoid of any trace of life. Soil, rock, and minerals had been utterly annihilated, reduced to their atomic forms. Yet even after such destruction, Byakuya's presence lingered, undeterred by the catastrophic attack. Chapter 263, Negotiation. Under the cleansing power of particle style, the vines and rocks disintegrated into their atomic states. After completing the technique, Onoki steadied himself, clutching his aging back, and used sensory ninjutsu to confirm no remaining chakra signatures in the vicinity. Finally, he let out a long, relieved sigh. He hadn't initially intended to unleash such a massive particle style technique. The immense chakra cost and uncontrollable power risked harming Byakuya, potentially souring the relationship between Hidden Stones Village and Hidden Rain Village. However, the moment he saw the wood style technique, an inexplicable fear rose within him, compelling him to escalate his attack. Decades ago, a young Onoki, only 13 years old, had accompanied his teacher, the second Sushi Kage Mu, on a visit to Hidden Leaf Village. There, he encountered his lifelong nightmare, Madara Uchiha. With unrivaled power, Madara had crushed both him and his teacher, leaving a permanent mark on Onoki's memory. That terrifying figure, however, was eventually defeated by the first Hokage, through the overwhelming might of wood style. Thus, even if it came at a great cost, Onoki was determined to eliminate Byakuya, a potential wood style user. He feared the re-emergence of such a force in the ninja world, even if Byakuya wasn't nearly as powerful as the first Hokage. Finally rid of this trouble. I'll need a proper rest after this, he muttered to himself. As if responding to his musings, Byakuya suddenly appeared in front of him. Startled, Onoki instinctively stepped back a few paces, his voice tinged with shock. Jesus. Are you human or ghost? Of course, I'm human, Byakuya said, stepping closer with a faint look of lingering fear. Still, Sushi Kage-sama's particle style is truly formidable. If my real body had been in the forest just now, I might not have survived. You anticipated my use of particle style? Onoki's shoulders turned down. He knew the biggest weakness of particle style was its hit-or-miss nature. Byakuya nodded. Sushi Kage-sama's mastery of particle style is famous, so naturally, I was prepared for it. Only a fool would try to withstand particle style head-on. Onoki fell silent. Byakuya's words were undeniably true, no one would willingly face particle style directly. Yet, as Byakuya stood so close, Onoki calculated his chances. He still had a considerable amount of chakra left. If he seized this opportunity to strike, would victory be within reach? After a brief consideration, Onoki dismissed the idea. He couldn't be sure if the Byakuya in front of him was the real body or a wood clone. If he exhausted all his chakra on a gamble, he might end up defeated by Byakuya, a humiliation unworthy of a Kage. Sensing Onoki's thoughts, Byakuya's expression turned serious. Sushi Kage-sama, I suggest you hold back. Otherwise, I might truly get angry. After all, I only came here as a tourist, yet you attacked me repeatedly. Onoki's expression also hardened, adopting a more equal stance as he responded. Enough with the banter. State your true purpose. What deal do you want to strike with me? Byakuya shrugged and said casually, I'm honestly just passing through. I only stepped in to rescue my subordinate. If it weren't for your disciple Deodara inexplicably bombing us, we would have left Hidden Stones village long ago. So, it's Deodara's fault? Onoki silently cursed Deodara in his heart. The young man's obsession with explosive art had not only caused trouble for others but nearly cost Onoki dearly against Byakuya. But then, why was Byakuya's subordinate near Hidden Stones village in the first place? Thinking of this, Onoki sneered coldly. Why was your subordinate near Hidden Stones village as borders? Was he a spy infiltrating my village, caught by our defenses? Byakuya shook his head. It wasn't your shinobi. It was Hidden Leaf Village's ninja who attacked my subordinate. Onoki looked doubtful. Your Hidden Rain Village has good relations with Hidden Leaf Village. Why would they target your range shinobi? Sushi Kage-sama should know that between nations, there are no friends, only interests. After a pause, Byakuya added, besides, the years of war in Hidden Rain Village's history can't be separated from Hidden Leaf Village's meddling. I personally hold little goodwill toward them. Is that so? Onoki remained skeptical, his mind beginning to piece together Byakuya's motives and background. Based on the information obtained from Hidden Stones village, Byakuya and others such as Yahiko, who are part of the leadership of Hidden Rain village, were originally wandering orphans in the Land of Rain. Later, Yahiko and his group were mentored by Jiraiya, one of the 3 legendary Sannin of Hidden Leaf village. As for who trained Byakuya, Hidden Stones village's intelligence department has never reached a clear conclusion. Some speculate that Byakuya might be a descendant of a long-extinct ninja clan, otherwise, it would be impossible for him to possess such strength at a young age. After all, the strength of a ninja depends not only on talent and hard work but also significantly on lineage and inheritance. A ninja with a father who was a Kage often achieves at least elite Jonin strength. After witnessing Byakuya's use of wood style, Onoki began to suspect that Byakuya might carry the bloodline of the Senju clan. As for why Byakuya appeared in Hidden Rain Village instead of Hidden Leaf Village, that remains a mystery. Perhaps he was abducted as a child or faced persecution in Hidden Leaf Village. This may explain why Byakuya has consistently concealed his identity, is unwilling to return to Hidden Leaf Village, and even harbors considerable hostility toward it. Onoki began pondering whether this hostility could be leveraged to recruit Byakuya to serve his purposes. After deliberating for a long time, Onoki asked, Byakuya, I can represent Hidden Stones Village. Can you represent Hidden Rain Village? If so, we might be able to engage in deeper negotiations. After all, if Hidden Stones Village and your village can establish a cooperative relationship, it could help us both overcome weaknesses while maximizing strengths. I can represent Hidden Rain Village to discuss matters with the Sushi Kage, Byakuya replied. He paused momentarily, then looked into the distance and said, we can talk until the battle between Deodara and Conan concludes. Onoki froze for a moment. Wouldn't negotiations between villages normally take days? Why was the time so short? Byakuya glanced at Onoki and explained, I don't want anyone else to know about our conversation. On the surface, it's better if Hidden Stones Village and Hidden Rain Village have no apparent connection. It would be troublesome if this information got out. Why? Onoki was puzzled. From his perspective, Byakuya was likely here to discuss territorial divisions in nearby smaller nations. Was there really a need to be so secretive? Byakuya took a deep breath and turned his gaze toward the direction of the Land of Fire. Sushi Kage-sama, I want to briefly discuss matters concerning Hidden Leaf Village and Hidden Sand Village. Don't you think they've become too powerful? I'm planning to take action against them in the future. Chapter 264, Discussing Villages over Wine. Hearing this, Onoki squinted his eyes slightly, becoming even more intrigued by Byakuya. Due to its geographic constraints, despite being one of the 5 great shinobi villages, Hidden Stones Village lags far behind the Land of Fire's Hidden Leaf Village in terms of wealth and commission opportunities. Among the 5 great shinobi villages, the only one they surpass in wealth is Hidden Sand Village, located in the arid desert. However, this does not mean Hidden Stones Village lacks ambition regarding Hidden Sand Village's lands. For Hidden Stones Village, even the smallest bit of additional territory could solve employment issues for its ninjas. Of course, obtaining the Land of Grass or even Hidden Leaf Village's land would be ideal. But due to Hidden Leaf Village's extensive network of alliances, any attack on a neighboring smaller nation would effectively mean directly attacking Hidden Leaf Village. At the moment, Onoki had no desire to be dragged into a war. Pulling his wandering thoughts back, Onoki turned his gaze to Byakuya. He wanted to hear Byakuya's thoughts on Hidden Leaf Village and Hidden Sand Village. He asked, "So I recall Hidden Leaf Village and Hidden Sand Village haven't posed a direct threat to Hidden Rain Village, have they?" Byakuya nodded and replied, "Not at present, but the future is uncertain. Besides, if Hidden Rain Village wants to ascend to the ranks of the 5 great shinobi villages, we'll have to confront Hidden Leaf Village and Hidden Sand Village sooner or later." "You want Hidden Rain Village to become one of the 5 great shinobi villages?" Onoki repeated the phrase a few times before saying, "I didn't expect you to have such ambition, but making a move against the 5 great shinobi villages? 20 years ago, your teacher Hanzo the Salamander tried, and we both know how that ended." Clearing his throat, Onoki continued in the tone of an elder sharing wisdom, "The reason the 5 great shinobi villages hold their status isn't just because of 1 or 2 powerful figures that intimidate the shinobi world. It's also because they have a substantial number of elite jonin as their core strength, as well as enough chunin and geinin to maintain their size and influence. Without this foundation, even if you temporarily achieve parity with the 5 great shinobi villages, it would be like a meteor streaking across the sky, brilliant but fleeting. I'm well aware of that history." Byakuya paused briefly before continuing, "Any small village challenging the 5 great shinobi villages meets a grim end. After that defeat, my teacher spent over a decade regaining his ambition, entrusting his dream of joining the 5 great shinobi villages to us, the younger generation. That's why I'm here today, to discuss cooperation with you, Tsuchikage-sama. If we work together, we can severely weaken Hidden Leaf Village, stripping it of its title as the premier shinobi village and damaging its foundations. What's the plan? Let's hear it." Seeing Byakuya's confident demeanor, Onoki grew intrigued. If Byakuya's plan was sound, he might even consider lending some support. While Onoki did not harbor ambitions of making Hidden Stones Village the #1 village, weakening Hidden Leaf Village would certainly be beneficial to Hidden Stones Village. Realizing Onoki's interest, Byakuya didn't keep him in suspense. "Tsuchikage-sama, you must be aware of the long-standing conflict between the Senju and Uchiha clans in Hidden Leaf Village. When Madara Uchiha defected and later attacked Hidden Leaf Village, it deepened the rift between the 2 clans." Onoki nodded. He had heard of the tension between the Senju and Uchiha clans. However, he believed that no matter how severe the conflict, it wouldn't cause a major crisis for Hidden Leaf Village. Internal disputes could always be resolved through high-level meetings. For example, despite ideological clashes with his village's Jinchuriki, Onoki shared a will of stone with them, ensuring unity within the village. Byakuya, seeing through Onoki's thoughts, chuckled lightly. "Tsuchikage-sama, Hidden Leaf Village's situation is far more complex than you imagine. From what I've learned, the tension between the Uchiha and Senju factions has become irreconcilable. They're on the brink of a coup." After pondering Byakuya's words, Onoki said, "So, you're suggesting I ignite the conflict between the Senju and Uchiha? That's something I can't do. Any overt action by me against Hidden Leaf Village would only unify them against a common enemy." Without hesitation, Byakuya responded, "As for igniting the Uchiha conflict, I've already made preparations. The Uchiha can never truly unite with Hidden Leaf Village's leadership. All I need you to do, Tsuchikage-sama, is to apply enough pressure along the border when the time comes. You could even launch an offensive against the Land of Fire. Hidden Rain Village has no interest in the Fire Country's territory." "No interest in the Land of Fire's territory?" Onoki frowned. "Then what do you want? Merely to see Hidden Leaf Village descend into chaos?" "Of course not." Byakuya shook his head gently. "What I want is the Uchiha clan's bloodline limit. With a Sharingan, Hidden Rain Village can grow stronger." Onoki was momentarily stunned. He looked at Byakuya, a tinge of emotion flickering in his heart. The Uchiha clan had once been incredibly glorious. In their prime, their leader, Madara Uchiha, could terrify most elite jonin with just a glance. Yet, decades later, they had fallen to such a lowly state. Not only had the Uchiha become a tool in Byakuya's scheme to ignite internal strife within Hidden Leaf Village, but even their Sharingan was now targeted, reducing them to mere pawns in the game. After a moment of reflection, Onoki began to carefully evaluate how much Hidden Stones Village could benefit from this arrangement. First, weakening Hidden Leaf Village was undoubtedly advantageous for Hidden Stones Village. By simply deploying a strong force along the border, he could tie down Hidden Leaf Village's troops, making their internal conflict unfold more smoothly. Second, Onoki could gain Byakuya as a covert ally. While Hidden Stones Village and Hidden Rain Village might not form an official alliance, collaborating on this plan would place Hidden Rain Village in Onoki's debt. He could potentially use this leverage to ensure Hidden Rain Village aligned with Hidden Stones Village in future endeavors. Furthermore, Hidden Rain Village's rise could serve as a counterbalance to Hidden Lee Village and Hidden Clouds Village, creating new shifts in the shinobi world's power dynamics. As for claiming the Land of Fire's territory, Onoki had little interest. It wasn't that he didn't want the land, rather, Hidden Stones Village's current strength wasn't suited to triggering another large-scale shinobi war. If something were to happen to him during such a war, Hidden Stones Village would find itself leaderless and in chaos. Until he had groomed a suitable successor, Onoki had no intention of initiating another great war. Pulling his wandering thoughts back, Onoki suddenly remembered something and asked Byakuya, "Byakuya, why are you seeking cooperation with Hidden Stones Village instead of other shinobi villages?" After a brief moment of contemplation, Byakuya replied, "During the last war, I had a falling out with the 4th Raikage. I also despise Hidden Clouds Village's bandit-like ways, so I ruled them out as potential partners. As for Hidden Sand Village and Hidden Mist Village, one is pitifully weak, and the other is embroiled in the blood mist turmoil. Neither of them is worthy of collaborating with Hidden Rain Village." Chapter 265, The Shadow of Onoki. Cloud is a bandit, Sand is weak, and Mist is embroiled in the blood mist crisis. Among all the ninja villages in the world, only Onoki-sensei's Hidden Stones Village can be our cooperation partner. Without realizing it, Byakuya had already started addressing Onoki as Onoki-sensei instead of Sushi Kage-sama. Onoki noticed the change in address but didn't comment on it. Instead, he accepted Byakuya's respectful tone with a smile. At the same time, he couldn't help but feel a little envious of how well Hanzo of the Salamander had trained such an exceptional successor. If only my own disciple, Deidara, could be this promising. If he could even be a tenth as capable, he wouldn't be constantly causing me trouble in the village, Onoki mused. After a few seconds of contemplation, Onoki replied, "Byakuya, I'll carefully consider your plan, but first, shouldn't we stop my disciple from fighting your village?" Byakuya nodded and took out a summoning contract, handing it to Onoki. Onoki glanced at it and immediately recognized that it was a summoning contract, likely intended to establish a communication channel between Hidden Stones Village and Hidden Rain Village using summoning beasts. Onoki accepted the contract, but he didn't plan on signing it himself. Instead, he intended to have his subordinates test it out, uncertain if there were any traps hidden within. After the discussion concluded, the two flew into the air, heading toward the location where Conan and Deidara were battling. Onoki couldn't help but feel a hint of surprise when he saw Byakuya flying. He hadn't expected this young man to not only master wood style but also possess the ability to fly. Few shinobi in the world could fly, and most of them relied on powerful bird summoning creatures to achieve flight. A ninja who could fly under their own power was an extraordinary rarity. This meant that, even if Byakuya wasn't strong enough to defeat his opponents in battle, he could always retreat through flight. Byakuya, enjoying the attention, accelerated his speed. For him, the shock of 100 ordinary ninjas paled in comparison to the astonishment of a Kage-level ninja, and Onoki was no ordinary Kage, he was one of the 5 Kage. Before long, Byakuya and Onoki arrived at the battlefield between Conan and Deidara. By this point, the battle was nearly over. Conan's nearly endless supply of explosive tags had worn Deidara down to the point where he had exhausted most of his chakra, unable even to maintain flight. Deidara, always passionate about his explosive arts, had ironically been defeated in an explosive battle by a female ninja. This was a serious blow to his confidence, and he gazed at Conan in midair, feeling despondent and defeated. Conan didn't deliver a fatal blow to Deidara, she only restricted his movements. Part of the reason was that Byakuya hadn't appeared yet, and she wasn't sure how Byakuya intended to handle Deidara. Another reason was that Deidara held a sensitive position as the disciple of the 3rd Sushi Kage. A ninja like him, during peacetime, couldn't be killed unless she wanted to instigate a war. At that moment, Conan sensed Byakuya and Onoki's arrival. When she saw Onoki flying in the sky, she was momentarily stunned. What had Byakuya been doing while she was fighting Deidara? Why was he now appearing side by side with the 3rd Sushi Kage? Did Byakuya possess some special aura that made the old man more inclined to like him? Deidara, upon seeing Onoki, also appeared momentarily confused. After rubbing his eyes, he confirmed that the short old man before him was indeed his teacher. Onoki-sensei. Master, you're finally here. This was the first time Deidara had shown such a submissive attitude toward Onoki, almost like a rebellious child returning home after being bullied. However, instead of feeling pleased by Deidara's rare display of humility, Onoki frowned. After landing beside Deidara, Onoki let out a cold snort and said, "Deidara, if your skills aren't up to par, don't show off. I'm not sure if I've told you, but there are more powerful ninjas in the world than you think." Deidara nodded, feeling somewhat wronged, and said, I understand, Anoki-sensei. In the past, Deidara would have just agreed verbally to Anoki's scolding without taking it to heart, but after encountering Conan during this mission, he finally realized how harsh the world could be. There were indeed ninjas who could surpass him in the art of explosions, and crush him utterly in the process. At that moment, Deidara noticed Byakuya not far away and curiously asked, Anoki-sensei, why are you with him? Aren't they the enemies who invaded the village? Didn't you just capture him? Anoki's expression stiffened. If he had managed to capture Byakuya, then Byakuya would indeed be the intruder. But since both sides were evenly matched, they could only be considered cooperative partners. Wanting to maintain his image in front of his disciple, Anoki had no choice but to explain, Byakuya, along with Conan, are my guests. When I heard that you escaped from the confinement room, I specifically asked them to give you a lesson, so you could understand the saying, there's always someone stronger, and the sky is higher than the ground. Ah shit, here we go again. Deidara's eyes were wide with shock as he pointed at Anoki. Anoki, old man, how could you do this? I almost sacrificed myself for my art just now. Anoki stroked his beard, pretending to be wise, and said, if I didn't do this, how could I teach you? Don't blame me, it's for your own good. Let's see if you'll still pursue your art after this lesson. Deidara pondered for a moment, then seriously said, my pursuit of explosion art will never stop. Today's battle with Conan-sensei made me understand what true explosive art is. I'll continue down this path. Upon hearing this, Anoki's smile immediately froze, and he gave Deidara a sharp smack on the head. Deidara, go back and reflect on your mistakes. Still pursuing art? Look at Byakuya and Conan, both of them are only a few years older than you, yet they've already become some of the strongest ninjas in the world. Deidara grumbled, it's not my fault I didn't have enough clay. If I had, Conan definitely wouldn't have been my opponent. And that Byakuya guy too, if I had been fully prepared, he wouldn't have been my match either. Upon hearing Byakuya's name, Anoki's expression turned serious. Deidara, even if you were fully prepared, you still wouldn't be a match for Byakuya. That guy's strength is unfathomable. This was the first time Deidara had seen Anoki show such an expression, and he asked in confusion, Anoki, old man, is Byakuya really that strong? Anoki nodded and replied, extremely strong. Right now, his strength is on par with mine, and within the next few decades, he will undoubtedly grow into a ninja who will make the entire ninja world tremble. After saying that, Anoki sighed lightly. When he was young, he had encountered legends like the first Hokage and Madara Uchiha, ninjas who could shake the entire ninja world. Their mere existence was enough to suppress the ambitions of the 4 great shinobi villages. He had thought that such powerful figures would never appear again. But now, after reaching his later years, the ninja world had once again produced a monster like this. Although he might not reach the height of the first Hokage, his mere presence was enough to make Anoki feel a sense of fear. Deidara didn't understand what Anoki was contemplating, but he remembered the look on his teacher's face and deeply engraved Byakuya's name in his mind. Chapter 266, Kitsushi's mission. Not long after Byakuya and Conan left, Kitsushi led the Hidden Stones village Anbu to the outskirts of the training ground. Even from several kilometers away, he could hear explosions booming intermittently and saw the blinding light of a particle-style beam. His heart began to worry about the old man's health. Although the old man was one of the most powerful shinobi in the ninja world, his age was catching up to him. His stamina and reaction time were no longer what they used to be. If he were to face an entire foreign Anbu squad's attack, there would still be a risk of him falling in battle. On his way there, Kitsushi saw the devastated land marked with deep craters caused by particle style. His ominous premonition grew stronger. He feared something had happened to his father. Upon reaching the massive training ground and seeing his father, Anoki, standing with Deidara, Kitsushi finally sighed in relief. It must have been the old man reprimanding Deidara for running off, but using a lethal technique like particle style to discipline a child seemed a bit much. That could easily get someone killed. Though he muttered this to himself, Kitsushi dared not voice his thoughts aloud to his father. Having grown up under a strong-willed father, Kitsushi was used to Anoki making all the decisions. All he needed to do was follow his father's plans. Anoki noticed Kitsushi and the others nearby. He turned to Deidara and said, when we return, I won't put you under house arrest. However, until you've gained the ability to protect yourself, I won't allow you to leave the village again. Deidara nodded, then hopped onto a clay bird and flew back to Hidden Stones village. Once Deidara left, Kitsushi approached Anoki and asked, Third Sushi Kage, were you sparring with Deidara just now? Half the village could hear the commotion here. Anoki shook his head, his gaze sharp as he replied, I wasn't sparring with Deidara. I encountered a powerful shinobi outside the village. We fought, But unfortunately, the match ended inconclusively. A shinobi on equal footing with the third Sushi Kage? Kitsuchi's expression was one of shock. As an elite Jonin, he knew very well how strong his father was. While there were many shinobi in the ninja world with so-called Kage-level strength, none were his father's match. Yet today, outside Hidden Stone's village, there appeared an opponent evenly matched with his father. The ninja world is filled with powerful shinobi. We can never let our guard down, Onoki said sternly. After a pause, he continued, I have 2 tasks for you. Send people to carry them out tomorrow morning. I await your orders, third Sushi Kage, Kitsuchi replied formally. When it came to work, Kitsuchi preferred to address his father by his title, always maintaining a respectful distance. Onoki glanced at his honest, straightforward son and sighed softly. First, investigate the Land of Rain, particularly Hidden Rain Village and the Akatsuki organization's strength. Second, look into Hidden Lee Village's Uchiha clan. I want to know how deep their conflict with Hidden Lee Village's leadership runs. Kitsuchi nodded obediently, then respectfully followed Onoki and the others back to Hidden Stone's village. Meanwhile, on the other side, Conan approached Byakuya. Having just seen Byakuya and Onoki standing side by side, she was puzzled. Byakuya, what happened back there? Why were you with the third Sushi Kage? Byakuya replied casually, I just fought with the Sushi Kage. Neither of us could do anything to the other, so we decided to call it a draw. Onoki doesn't want to offend strong individuals like us. Conan was silent for a moment, unsure of how to respond. Byakuya had recently fought the fourth Raikage to a standstill, and now he had gone toe-to-toe with the third Sushi Kage. It seemed Byakuya had truly become one of the ninja world's peak powerhouses. If he weren't, he wouldn't have dared to provoke Hidden Stone's village. As for Byakuya claiming she also possessed Kage-level strength, Conan didn't believe it. She still had a long way to go before reaching that level. At that moment, Byakuya's face turned slightly mysterious as he said, of course, apart from fighting Onoki, I also discussed cooperation between our 2 villages with him. Conan paused in surprise and asked, did the third Sushi Kage agree to cooperate? Byakuya shook his head lightly. Onoki didn't agree, but he didn't refuse either. If we don't offer enough benefits, it'll be hard to convince this old veteran of the ninja world. Conan agreed with this assessment. Cooperation between shinobi was only possible when the 2 sides were equally matched in power. Even then, it was difficult to satisfy both sides, let alone form any kind of alliance. Suddenly, Conan thought of something and asked Byakuya, where are we headed next? You're not planning to take another detour, are you? Byakuya looked slightly embarrassed. Unable to refute her, he simply reassured her, this time, we won't take a detour. Once we've arranged things with Kabuto and Nano, we'll head straight back to the village. After leaving the Hidden Stones village training grounds, Byakuya and Conan found Kabuto and Nano in a hidden cave. At that moment, Kabuto and Nano were discussing the commotion outside. They were debating whether to go out and help Byakuya and Conan. Staying put was torture, but if they went outside, they might end up being a burden due to their lack of strength. Hearing the conversation between Kabuto and Nano, a faint smile appeared on Byakuya's lips. Over the years, his efforts to cultivate Kabuto Yakushi had not been in vain. By now, his importance in Kabuto's heart might have even surpassed that of Orochimaru in the original timeline. However, unlike that venomous snake Orochimaru, Byakuya had no plans of dying so easily, nor did he intend to fragment his soul. The method of splitting one's soul and dispersing it across the ninja world did enhance survival capabilities, but it also drastically reduced personal strength. The reason was simple: chakra is the product of the fusion between physical energy and spiritual power. Without a complete soul, no matter how strong the body is, it will still have defects. This is also why, despite mastering numerous cloning techniques, Orochimaru still relied on unorthodox powers when dealing with enemies. With these thoughts in mind, Byakuya walked into the cave, deliberately making his entrance obvious. Kabuto and Nano turned around sharply, their senses on high alert. Seeing that it was Byakuya, they both breathed a sigh of relief. Kabuto immediately spoke, Lord Byakuya, Lady Conan, it's a relief that you're unharmed. Byakuya let out a faint snort and replied, Hidden Stone's village is no match for me and Conan. After a friendly exchange with the third Sushi Kage, he voluntarily let us go. Kabuto and Nano were unsurprised by Byakuya's display of power. In their eyes, Byakuya was expected to possess such strength. After a brief moment of contemplation, Byakuya turned to Kabuto and Nano, his voice calm as he asked, back to the question from earlier. Nano, do you intend to return to Hidden Leaf Village, wander the ninja world, or join the Akatsuki? Nano, having long made up her mind, responded without hesitation, Lord Byakuya, I am willing to join Hidden Rain Village and become a member of the Akatsuki. Chapter 267, The Suspicious Denzo, Upper Jonin Nano has joined the Akatsuki. You have received the Walking Priestess Intelligence Specialization. Walking Priestess Intelligence Specialization. After serving as a spy across the ninja world for over a decade, Nano developed a method for quickly training spies, refined during her time running an orphanage. Hearing the system notification in his mind, Byakuya casually clicked to claim the reward. He didn't particularly care about the reward itself. The real benefit was ensuring Kabuto, this talented genius, remained tied to the Akatsuki alongside Nano. After shaking hands with their newest recruit, Nano, Byakuya turned to Kabuto and asked, "Now that Director Nano has joined the Akatsuki, what are your plans, Kabuto?" Kabuto was briefly stunned before a look of gratitude appeared on his face. Unlike Denzo, who issued orders without hesitation and ruled the root organization with an iron fist, Byakuya was considerate enough to ask for his opinion before assigning a mission. Denzo, by contrast, disregarded even the Hokage's commands, punishing any ninja who defied him harshly. After a moment of thought, Kabuto said respectfully, "Lord Byakuya, I intend to continue my mission in Hidden Leaf Village, gathering intelligence on its major factions for you." Byakuya gave Kabuto a thoughtful look and asked, "When you return, how do you plan to explain this to Denzo?" The mission he gave you and Nano was to eliminate each other, after all. Kabuto understood that Byakuya was testing his ability to improvise, so he replied, "I will report that the mission to eliminate the traitor failed due to uncontrollable circumstances, but I'll provide him with more critical intelligence to make up for it." Hearing this, Byakuya nodded in approval. Kabuto, after all, was the same three-faced spy who, in the original timeline, managed to outmaneuver both Denzo and Sasori of the Red Sand. Later, he even played a key role in orchestrating the Fourth Great Ninja War alongside Obito, fighting against the 5 great ninja villages. After silently appraising Kabuto for a few seconds, Byakuya retrieved 2 scrolls from his belongings and handed them over. "Kabuto, I recently obtained 2 secret techniques that are perfectly suited for you to master." Kabuto accepted the scrolls with a look of excitement and gratitude, bowing deeply. "Lord Byakuya, I will faithfully carry out your orders and not disappoint you." Byakuya waved him off. "The intelligence itself isn't as important as your survival. Your life is far more valuable than any intelligence on Hidden Leaf Village. When you return, take good care of yourself." The secret techniques Byakuya gave to Kabuto were none other than body revival jutsu and dark medical ninjutsu, obtained from Shinno. For someone like Byakuya, whose bloodline was already approaching the level of Ashura, these techniques were of limited value. They wouldn't help him surpass the 5 Kage and reach Super Kage strength. However, for Kabuto, who was still only at Chunin level, it was a completely different story. With Kabuto's innate talent, he would soon master these secret techniques. With a bit of additional support to boost his strength, it wouldn't be difficult for Kabuto to rival Kakashi and become one of the elite Jonin in the ninja world. Only then would Kabuto become a truly valuable chess piece, ready to be deployed on the grand board of the ninja world. Over the next 2 weeks, Kabuto focused on learning body revival and dark medical ninjutsu. Byakuya also brought him several medical documents from Morochimaru's laboratory, aiding Kabuto's rapid progress in medical ninjutsu. Eventually, Kabuto received a response to his report to Denzo and was summoned to return to Hidden Leaf Village. Root Base. In the dimly lit room of the Root headquarters, Denzo sat in a chair, his expression as inscrutable as ever, as he reviewed the report Kabuto had submitted upon his return from Hidden Stones Village. His fingers tapped rhythmically on the desk as he squinted slightly at Kabuto and asked, "Kabuto, you're saying the mission to eliminate the Root traitor failed because Hidden Stones Village was attacked, and the target never appeared at the designated location?" Kabuto nodded solemnly and replied, "Yes, Lord Denzo. I failed in my duties. Please punish me as you see fit." Denzo studied Kabuto carefully, as though trying to discern whether he was lying. The mission he had assigned Kabuto and Nano was intended to sever their emotions completely, turning them into perfect tools for him. Unlike other departments in Hidden Leaf Village, the Root organization didn't require its members to retain their humanity. Absolute obedience was all that mattered. Most Root ninjas only became qualified after completing missions to kill close friends or loved ones, burying their emotions to serve as Denzo's tools. If Kabuto succeeded in killing Nano, it would prove he was ready to become one of Denzo's perfect tools. If Kabuto hesitated, then Denzo's backup plan, a reprogrammed Nano, would eliminate Kabuto as a defective product. Both outcomes had been accounted for. However, the situation had deviated from Denzo's expectations. During Kabuto's mission to eliminate Nano, Hidden Stones Village had been attacked by unidentified forces, dragging Nano into the chaos as collateral damage. When Denzo first heard this report, he suspected Kabuto of deceiving him. Yet other Root operatives stationed in Hidden Stones village confirmed that the village had indeed been attacked the previous night. The scale of the assault was so large that even Elite Jonin Kitsuchi and the third Sushi Kage Anoki had been mobilized. Kabuto might have conspired to deceive him, but there was no way he could involve the third Sushi Kage in his deception. After a long silence, Denzo asked, "From which direction did the attackers come? Did Hidden Stones village reach any conclusions?" Kabuto furrowed his brow as though recalling details and replied, "It seemed to be from the southeast. As for whether it was Hidden Clouds village or another village, I don't know, that information was classified." "Southeast?" Denzo muttered, his brows furrowing. Before the Ninetales incident, hearing southeast of Hidden Stones village would have led him to suspect Hidden Clouds village or Hidden Sand village, as both villages had the motive and strength to attack Hidden Stones village. However, since the rise of Hidden Rain village, his first suspicion was now the Rain village. Apart from its famed demigod Hanzo, the one who stood out most in his mind was Byakuya. Although Byakuya had secretly cooperated with him on multiple occasions, Denzo would never trust him completely. If not for Byakuya, Denzo would have successfully formed an alliance with Hanzo long ago. Perhaps after the Ninetales incident, Denzo could have used Hanzo's influence to secure his position as the fifth Hokage. But if the attack on Hidden Stones village really was Byakuya's doing, what is Byakuya up to? Denzo wondered. While Hidden Rain village's current strength was impressive, it was still not enough to challenge Hidden Stones village directly. Initiating a conflict recklessly would only benefit the other ninja villages. Unless Byakuya was emulating one of his own old strategies, disguising himself as a ninja from another village to provoke hostilities and ignite a new ninja war? Chapter 268, Two Spies. Kabuto observed Denzo's reaction closely, quietly musing to himself. Denzo was one of Hidden Leaf Village's high-ranking officials, the head of Root, and could dispatch entire squads of ninjas with a mere wave of his hand, orchestrating unexplained accidents for any trouble sojourn in. Yet, the moment Byakuya's name was mentioned, Denzo's composure cracked. His face clearly revealed tension and unease, which left Kabuto curious. What exactly had Lord Byakuya done to make Denzo so visibly anxious at the mere mention of his name? Realizing his reaction had been excessive, Denzo reined in his emotions. No matter how wary he was of Byakuya, he couldn't afford to reveal his apprehension in front of his subordinates. Moreover, the truth behind the attack on Hidden Stones village was still uncertain. The shinobi of Hidden Clouds village are cunning and treacherous, they have a history of abductions and framing others. For all Denzo knew, they might have launched a covert mission against Hidden Stones village, targeting one of their bloodline limits. Take Hidden Clouds village's elite Jonin Taro, for example. He was kidnapped as a child and groomed to become a wielder of the magnet style. Although Troy ultimately fell to the fourth Kazekage, his case stood as proof of Hidden Clouds village's ambitions. Pushing those thoughts aside, Denzo refocused on Kabuto, pondering the boy's future. Kabuto was a rare talent Denzo had personally picked out from the orphanage, young, highly skilled, and with a remarkably high mission success rate. If nurtured properly, he could one day become a Jonin elite. Hidden Leaf Village had no more than a few dozen Jonin elite ninjas, and Root, under Denzo's leadership, had even fewer, only 2 or 3. Losing another promising ninja would be wasteful. However, Kabuto had failed his test of loyalty. He hadn't killed his loved one, which meant he might someday betray Denzo. Normally, such risks were eliminated swiftly. But the loss of Tenzo Yamato, whom Hiruzen had taken from him months ago, left Denzo with fewer resources. Kabuto was too valuable to discard. After a long pause, Denzo finally spoke. "Kabuto, given that you've brought back vital information, I will overlook your failure this time. But failure cannot go entirely unpunished. After writing your mission report, you are to report to the Ninja Academy." Kabuto was stunned. "The Ninja Academy? Lord Denzo, am I not too old to be placed there?" Denzo stared him down and clarified, "Not as a teacher. You will attend as a graduating student. Once you graduate, I'll assign you a new mission. In the meantime, I want you to observe and report on any promising young talents at the academy." Kabuto accepted the task without further objection. He knew Denzo had lost trust in him and was using this as a pretext to distance him from Root. Still, this wasn't entirely bad. A temporary break from Root meant more time to focus on his own studies, whether in medical ninjutsu or combat techniques. With enough power, he could truly become Lord Byakuya's right hand. As he left the dark, oppressive confines of Root and stepped into the sunlit streets of Hidden Leaf Village, Kabuto crossed paths with another young Root ninja. Their gazes met briefly before they passed each other without a word, heading in opposite directions. Even though the other ninja wore a mask, Kabuto quickly deduced his identity. This could only be Root's lone Uchiha member, Itachi Uchiha. Root had no shortage of young recruits, but none exuded the same aura of power and skill as the Uchiha prodigy. Looking back at Itachi, who was now disappearing into the root entrance, Kabuto couldn't help but feel that the Uchiha was far more suited for life in root, and for the role of a spy. But then again, what did that have to do with him? With a faint sigh, Kabuto picked up his pace and vanished into the forest. Meanwhile, Itachi felt something. He abruptly turned, scanning the area. The leaves rustled softly, but there was no sign of anyone spying on him. Reassured, Itachi continued deeper into the root headquarters, his heart weighed with unease. To join root and earn his place in the Anbu, Denzo had assigned him a dangerous mission, hunting down and eliminating a rogue ninja. This target was from a ninja clan and possessed Jonin elite-level taijutsu skills. If not for Shishui's timely assistance, Itachi might have been killed during the mission. Still, Itachi believed it was worth it. While Shishui served as a bridge between the Uchiha clan and Hidden Leaf village, Itachi knew one bridge wasn't enough. To resolve the tension between the Uchiha clan and the village, they needed more intermediaries, and Itachi was determined to become one. Only by proving himself to Denzo, showing him the loyalty and value of the Uchiha, could he help mend the rift. And beyond Hidden Leaf village, Itachi dreamed of bridging the gaps between villages, ushering in peace for the entire shinobi world. The dream might seem far-fetched, but Itachi believed someone had to try. He saw further than most Jonin, so he had to shoulder greater responsibilities. Crossing the dimly lit hallways of Root, Itachi finally stood before Denzo's office. The flickering candlelight reflected in Denzo's cold, calculating gaze. Steeling himself, Itachi knocked. "Come in," came Denzo's measured voice. "So you've finally returned, Itachi. How did the mission go?" Itachi entered the room, knelt on one knee, and reported, "Lord Denzo, the mission was a success. The rogue ninja has been eliminated." Denzo narrowed his eyes. "Oh? Is that so? Tell me everything." Chapter 269, Denzo's successor. During the mission debriefing, Itachi provided a meticulous and detailed account of the task, though Denzo listened with little interest. To Denzo, a rogue Jonin, regardless of their elite status, was insignificant. Against the vast military power of Hidden Leaf village, no lone traitor could cause any real upheaval. Instead, Denzo's attention remained firmly on Itachi. In his heart, he was determined to mold Itachi into a fine subordinate, a weapon to wield against the Uchiha clan. Itachi is the son of Fugaku Uchiha, the clan head, and an unparalleled prodigy. In less than half a year, Itachi has graduated from the Ninja Academy, breaking Kakashi's record. His exceptional performance during missions had even earned the envy of his Jonin leader. At the time, that Jonin refused to nominate Itachi for the Chunin exams, citing the team's lack of overall strength. Denzo himself intervened to secure Itachi's spot, and Itachi did not disappoint. He dominated the Chunin exams with overwhelming skill, securing first place without question. From that moment onward, Itachi had been under Denzo's watchful influence. It was through the recent mission evaluation that Itachi officially became a member of Root, Denzo's shadowy organization. After the report ended, Denzo looked at Itachi and said, "You did well on this mission." Eliminating a potential threat before he could defect to an enemy nation prevented valuable intelligence from being leaked. Denzo then paused deliberately before asking with a pointed tone, "Tell me, Itachi. How did it feel to kill a rogue ninja with your own hands?" Itachi was silent for a moment before answering, "Lord Denzo, I'm not sure what to feel. That man was a comrade of our village, why would he choose to betray Hidden Leaf village? What happened to him? During our time together, I saw someone who was kind and warm, a Jonin who cared for his comrades and family alike. I believe there must have been some reason, something unavoidable, that led him to betray the village." Denzo's expression darkened slightly. He spoke in a grave tone, "Every rogue ninja has their reasons. But uncovering those reasons is the Hokage's job. Root exists to protect Hidden Leaf village in the shadows. We do not need to understand traitors or redeem them. We need only to eliminate threats to the village. That is the mission of Root, and it is what you must learn and practice from now on." Itachi fell silent once more, contemplating Denzo's words. To some degree, they made sense to him. A ninja had no obligation to understand why someone turned traitor. From the moment they chose to betray the village, their past, no matter how tragic, ceased to matter. Seeing Itachi lost in thought, Denzo allowed a subtle, satisfied smile to appear on his lips. Those words were not empty, they were forged from decades of Denzo's experience as a shinobi. Speaking from his heart was the best way to win the trust of a prodigy like Itachi. From the first time Denzo had seen Itachi, he had already envisioned his potential. He intended to cultivate this exceptional, independent-minded Uchiha, a child who thought like a seasoned shinobi at the age of 6, as his successor. Itachi would inherit his will of roots and his vision for the greater good. After a long silence, Itachi bowed slightly and said, "Thank you for your guidance, Lord Denzo. Is there another mission for me to undertake?" Denzo studied Itachi for a moment before replying, "For now, there's no mission. However, I hope you take the time to study the Will of Fire. Do not follow the same misguided path as the rest of your clan. Tomorrow, report to Root early. Murayama, one of my senior jonin, will assign you your next task." "Yes, Lord Denzo," Itachi said, bowing once again. He then turned and disappeared into the dark passageway. Once Itachi was gone, Denzo's face twisted into an inscrutable expression. He could tell that Itachi had not yet fully accepted his ideology. Oh well, as long as Itachi remained within Root, Denzo knew it was only a matter of time before he shaped the boy's beliefs. Sooner or later, he would mold Itachi into the blade he needed to eradicate the Uchiha. The Uchiha were, after all, an inherently evil clan. Their mere existence was a destabilizing factor in the village. Since the days of the first Hokage, Madara Uchiha had brought chaos. During the second Hokage's reign, it was Setsuna Uchiha. Then, during the fourth Hokage's time, the masked man responsible for the Nine Tails attack had wreaked havoc. And now, after the Nine Tails incident, Shisui had awakened the Mangekyo Sharingan, becoming yet another threat to the village. Denzo's eyes glinted coldly in the shadows. The Uchiha clan's fate had already been decided. Itachi would simply be the tool to carry out that decision. Although Shisui is currently close to Hiruzen, who's to say Shisui won't suddenly change his nature one day, take control of the young Jinchuriki, and start another shinobi world war within the village? Rather than living in constant fear, it's better to deal with the Uchiha threat in advance. If I take action and successfully eliminate Shisui Uchiha, obtaining his Mangekyo Sharingan, I would gain the power necessary to claim the title of Hokage. However, this is just a thought. Without absolute certainty, I can't make a move against Shisui. The crime of harming a fellow villager is severe, even if it involves an Uchiha. That old monkey Sarutobi Hiruzen would seize the opportunity to push me further from the center of power. The priority for now is to slowly groom Itachi, guiding him to turn against the Uchiha clan from within. As Itachi left the Root base, dusk had already fallen. Being recognized and officially joining the Root was a good thing for him. Starting today, he could finally move deeper into this organization, getting closer to the ninja most hostile toward the Uchiha, and understand their perspective on the clan. This would help immensely in resolving the conflict between the clan and the village. However, as he left the Root base, Itachi gradually came to his senses. Denzo's words earlier, which had seemed so reasonable, were actually trying to influence his understanding of what it means to be a shinobi, subtly twisting his values. What shocked him more was that, deep down, he found himself somewhat agreeing with Denzo's ideology. The idea of dwelling in darkness to protect the light had been ingrained in him long before he even attended the Ninja Academy. Unconsciously, Itachi had already returned to the Uchiha clan grounds. At that moment, a female Uchiha ninja wearing the village uniform approached him. She smiled brightly and said, "Itachi, there you are. The clan meeting is about to start, do you want to head over now? Oh, and one more thing. I've also passed my graduation exam and officially become a ninja. We might get the chance to go on missions together someday." Looking at the lively girl in front of him, Itachi gave a slight nod. "Let's go together, Izumi." Chapter 270, A New Choice for the Uchiha. The Uchiha clan meeting had lasted less than an hour, but to Itachi, it felt as though he had endured a full year. Surrounded by clansmen who only knew how to demand but not contribute, a feeling of disgust quietly stirred in his heart. He couldn't understand why his clan could be so foolish, so short-sighted, and incapable of considering the greater good. Even setting aside the slim odds of success for a coup, even if they did manage to seize power from the Hokage's office, the Uchiha and the village would both be gravely weakened. In such a state, how could they defend against the inevitable attacks from external enemies? The shinobi of his clan, Itachi thought bitterly, were just a group of fools who lacked the will of fire. He hadn't joined Root under Denzo to spy on the Hokage faction. His true goal was to maintain peace between the Uchiha and the village. Izumi Uchiha noticed the shift in Itachi's expression. Izumi, who had only just earned the right to attend clan meetings as a newly recognized ninja, was an old acquaintance of Itachi's. In truth, she had always held feelings for him, though for various reasons, she had never expressed them. Seeing Itachi's demeanor change during the meeting, Izumi's eyes filled with concern and confusion. The words spoken during the meeting were undoubtedly intense and a little radical, but nothing had truly crossed a line. After all, every shinobi aspired to be Hokage, why shouldn't the Uchiha be allowed to dream the same? If clan members needed a place to vent their frustrations, wasn't it better for them to do so here, in a clan meeting, rather than out in the open where it might stir trouble? When the meeting ended, Itachi and Izumi walked out of the Naka shrine together. Just as Izumi opened her mouth to say something, Itachi activated the body flicker jutsu and disappeared. Izumi stood frozen in place, her expression falling into sadness. She had thought that becoming a ninja would allow her to better understand Itachi, but now it seemed it had all been wishful thinking. She had never really understood him at all. Even when she wanted to comfort him, she didn't know how. As Izumi stood there helplessly, Shizue appeared behind her and spoke gently. "Izumi, go home. Leave Itachi to me." At the sight of Shizue, Izumi nodded quickly. If anyone in the clan understood Itachi best, it was undoubtedly Shizue. Not even Fugaku and Mikoto, Itachi's own parents, could compare to Shizue's insight into his mind. After offering Izumi a few words of comfort, Shizue vanished using the body flicker jutsu, heading toward the forest. It didn't take long for Shizue to find Itachi standing on a cliff near the Naka River. Guided by the moonlight, Shizue quietly approached and stood beside him. "It looks like something's bothering you," Shizue said calmly. "Is it because Fugaku-sama asked you to spy en route, or because of your meeting with Denzo earlier today?" "Both, I suppose." Itachi sighed softly, his eyes reflecting a complex mix of emotions. Shizue listened silently as Itachi recounted his conversation with Denzo earlier in the day, holding nothing back. When Itachi finished, Shizue furrowed his brows and said, "Itachi, you're not starting to fall for Denzo's ideals, are you? His belief in protecting the light from the shadows may sound noble, but didn't you catch the deeper meaning behind his words?" Shizue's tone grew serious. "Denzo was asking you this, if the day comes when the clan and the village come into conflict, which will you choose, your family or the village?" "I know." Itachi nodded slightly before countering with his own question. "But what if that day does come? I don't know if I would choose the village or the clan. If it were you, Shizue, I'm sure you would make the right choice." Shizue fell silent for a moment. If the only options were between the village and the clan, he realized he couldn't make a choice either. He didn't want to see the two sides fall into conflict. But whether choosing the village or the clan was the right decision, Shizue couldn't say. Still, all of that was in the past now. After being questioned by Byakuya and witnessing Byakuya's strength, comparable to that of the 5 Kage, Shizue knew there was a third option, one that didn't require choosing between the village and the clan. However, this option required far more resolve and courage than simply siding with one faction. After a long pause, Shizue turned to Itachi and asked slowly, "Itachi, let me ask you something, must the Uchiha stay in Hidden Leaf Village?" Itachi froze, his eyes widening in shock as he looked at Shizue. Shizue cleared his throat and continued, "If the clan is so dissatisfied with Hidden Leaf Village's leadership, and the leadership continues to treat the Uchiha as a threat, why must we stay here? If both sides refuse to coexist peacefully, why not leave?" Itachi thought for a moment before responding cautiously, "Shizue, are you suggesting that the clan leave Hidden Leaf Village and look for a new place to live?" "Exactly." Shizue nodded. "The clan doesn't have to stay in a village that rejects us. If Hidden Leaf Village refuses to accept us, we can simply leave." Itachi was visibly stunned by Shizue's proposal. After considering it carefully, he shook his head. "Shizue, it's good that you're thinking of alternatives, but your idea is impossible to execute. Leaving the village as a group would be no different, in the eyes of the leadership, from staging a coup. Whether it's defection or rebellion, the outcome would be the same. Hidden Leaf Village would send its forces to hunt us down. And do you think the clan would agree to such a plan? They're obsessed with overthrowing the current regime and installing Uchiha as Hokage. They wouldn't accept fleeing the village as an option. If you actually tried to carry out this plan, you'd face opposition from both the village and the clan." Itachi paused, then continued in a somber tone, "Even if we did manage to leave, where would we go? There's nowhere for the Uchiha to settle. Other villages would never accept us, and we'd just be trading one danger for another." Shizue fell silent, unable to deny that Itachi's reasoning was sound. This was precisely why no one in the Uchiha clan had ever suggested leaving Hidden Leaf Village. The Uchiha were one of the founding clans of the Hidden Leaf Village. How could they abandon the very village they helped create, only to become second-rate refugees in another land? For the Uchiha, who held honor above all else, such a fate was worse than death. But the clan shinobi were only one part of the equation. What about those in the clan who had yet to become ninjas? Shizue wondered. Would they value their honor, or would they value their lives? Could he make that choice on their behalf? A heavy sigh escaped Shizue's lips. Byakuya had been right. He was still far too indecisive, unable to act decisively when faced with matters of such magnitude. Perhaps his destiny was to meet a tragic end after all. Pushing those thoughts aside, Shizue forced a faint smile and turned to Itachi. "You're right. I haven't thought it through. But offering the clan another choice, even if it seems impossible, Can't be a bad thing. At the very least, it gives us one more chance to avoid conflict. This was the best solution I could think of to keep the clan and the village from destroying each other. Chapter 271, Itachi and Obito. After conversing under the moonlight for a while, Shizue and Itachi both felt considerably better. Although there were ideological conflicts between the two, at their core, both sought to save their clan and prevent a clash between the Uchiha and the village. After encouraging each other, Shizue and Itachi left the cliff and headed in the direction of their respective homes. On his way home, besides contemplating how the clan and the village could coexist, images of Sasuke gradually surfaced in Itachi's mind before a faint smile appeared on his lips. Walking the fine line between the root organization and his clan, he carried an immensely heavy burden every day. Only when he saw his younger brother's smiling face could he truly relax. Sasuke was his dearest little brother, the one he most wanted to protect in this lifetime. Even if it was just to protect his brother, he would stop the clan's reckless coup attempt. As for Shizue's earlier suggestion of having the entire clan flee, Itachi still couldn't decide whether he agreed or disagreed with it. But when exactly did Shizue start considering fleeing? Shizue used to care so deeply about Hidden Leaf Village and surely understood what the Uchiha defecting would mean for the village. If the Uchiha really left Hidden Leaf Village, it might shake the resolve of the other ninja clans. In this post-Senju dissolution era, the Uchiha were already the most senior family in the village. If they truly abandoned Hidden Leaf Village, the consequences would be unthinkable. Should he report Shizue's thoughts to the Hokage? Itachi fell into deep thought but immediately dismissed the idea. How could he dodge Shizue? Without Shizue's help, he would have already lost interest in the shinobi world and died in the Naka River. At that moment, accompanied by a surge of chakra, ripples appeared in the void. A distorted vortex appeared out of thin air, and from it emerged a figure clad in black robes and a tiger pattern mask, eyeing Itachi like a predator examining its prey. The instant he saw the masked man, Itachi drew a kunai and stared warily at him. He recognized this mysterious masked man and knew that, like himself, the man possessed Sharingan eyes, 3 Tomoe Sharingan, to be precise. It was this man who, during Itachi's mission to protect a noble, had killed his comrades, triggering his awakening of the single Tomoe Sharingan. He could never forget the way the masked man had looked at him that day, identical to the way he was looking at him now. The difference was that compared to a few years ago, his strength had undergone a qualitative change. He was no longer the freshly graduated genin from the Ninja Academy. Channeling chakra to his feet, Itachi shot forward like an arrow toward the masked man. But just as his kunai was about to strike, the masked man's body turned into an incorporeal shadow, as if the kunai had merely cut through air. After evading Itachi's attack, Toby reappeared on the other side and said indifferently, "Compared to 2 years ago, your strength has improved quite a bit. But if you want to kill me, you're still far from it. Only when you awaken the Mangekyo Sharingan will you be qualified to converse with me on equal terms." From Toby's words, Itachi gleaned a great deal of useful information. The other party, like himself, was also an Uchiha who had awakened the Mangekyo Sharingan and possessed a unique space-time ability. Moreover, the man seemed particularly interested in him. Thinking of this, Itachi feigned calm and said, "So, you hope that I awaken the Mangekyo Sharingan, but I'm curious about one thing. If you're truly an Uchiha, why have I never heard any rumors about you within the clan?" Toby glanced at Itachi and replied indifferently, "You've definitely heard my name, but you've simply forgotten for now. I am one of Hidden Leaf Village's founders, Madara Uchiha, the Shura of the shinobi world." Madara Uchiha. Itachi snorted lightly. "Madara died long ago at the hands of the first Hokage. Could it be that you're merely a ghost now, without a physical body?" "A ghost? That's not entirely wrong." After pausing for a moment, Toby continued, "I am indeed the ghost wandering above Hidden Leaf Village, silently observing everything that happens in Hidden Leaf Village. From the first great ninja war to the end of the conflict between Hidden Leaf Village and Hidden Clouds Village." Itachi furrowed his brow. He couldn't be certain if this man was truly Madara Uchiha. Madara had supposedly died decades ago, but aside from him, there were very few Uchiha known to have awakened the Mangekyo Sharingan. With that thought, Itachi decided to cut to the chase. "Enough nonsense. Why have you sought me out? I'm just a Hidden Leaf Village Jonin. I doubt there's anything about me worth your attention, let alone the possibility of awakening the Mangekyo Sharingan." Toby smiled and said, "Don't underestimate yourself. If you lacked the potential to awaken the Mangekyo Sharingan, I wouldn't have been keeping such a close eye on you. A genius like you will never fulfill your true potential while stuck in the mud that is Hidden Leaf Village and the Uchiha. I've come to observe you. One day, when you're disappointed in Hidden Leaf Village and the Uchiha, you'll become someone like me." "Someone like you?" Itachi retorted. Toby nodded and said, "Yes, someone like me. I was once like you, believing in the will of fire, in friendship, burning myself to illuminate the budding youth of Hidden Leaf Village. But the higher I rose, the more I could see Hidden Leaf Village's hypocrisy. Only after leaving Hidden Leaf Village did I find the true meaning of life, achieving world peace. The will of fire is merely a torch that lights up the darkness, but it can only illuminate Hidden Leaf Village, a small corner of the world. My goal is to raise a greater torch, one that can illuminate the entire shinobi world. Hearing that Dobi's wish was to bring world peace, Itachi gave him a skeptical look. While he had similar ideals, the man's words sounded overly grandiose and hollow. How could he dismiss the will of fire? Was there really a better ideology out there? After frowning in thought for a while, Itachi spoke. In the end, you're just trying to lure me away from Hidden Leaf Village and make me your subordinate. I have no interest in becoming your subordinate, so you might as well leave. If someone else were to see you here, they wouldn't be as tolerant as I am. No matter how powerful you are, you're no match for my village. Obi sneered and, as he disappeared into the swirling vortex, said, I've already launched an attack against Hidden Leaf Village before, so don't be so sure. I won't force you to join me immediately. One day, when you're disappointed in your clan and your village, you'll come begging me for help. But this dear me has the time and the patience to wait for that day to come. Chapter 272, Shishui's resolve at dawn the next day, after reporting to Ruma, a jonin, Itachi was assigned a surveillance mission. The target of his surveillance? None other than his own clan, the Uchiha. With a heavy heart, Itachi arrived at the Anbu surveillance room. The room was filled with countless screens, displaying nearly every corner of the Uchiha clan's district. Except for a few places like the police force headquarters and Naka Shrine, the rest was completely visible. Seeing this, Itachi felt his heart sink and a wave of unease washed over him. For the first time, he realized the stark gap between his clan and the village leadership. While the Uchiha spent their efforts trying to gather information about the upper echelon, Hidden Leaf Village's leadership had already established an extensive surveillance network over most of their territory. This also meant that every move the Uchiha made, including their ambitions to claim the Hokage position, was under constant scrutiny. Under such an overwhelming disadvantage, did his clan truly stand a chance? After a moment of silence, Itachi turned to Ruma, the leading jonin, and asked, Ruma-san, why did Lord Denzo assign me to monitor the Uchiha district? And why is the Uchiha clan under surveillance in the first place? Because the Uchiha are dangerous elements, of course. Ruma glanced at Itachi, speaking without the slightest regard for his feelings. The Valley of the End battle decades ago and the Nine-Tails attack a few years back have already proven this. Lord Denzo is worried that your clan will harm the village again. As for why you're assigned this task, it's likely because he trusts you. Hey. Honestly, I'm a little envious of you. You've only just joined Root, yet you've already earned Lord Denzo's favor. Who knows, you might even become his successor one day. Itachi forced a polite smile, concealing his emotions, and began his task. To most shinobi, watching monitors would be a dull task, but Itachi carried it out with utmost diligence. He wanted to see for himself how the upper echelons truly viewed his clan. From morning to dusk, Itachi worked for 12 hours straight before leaving Root headquarters. During this time, Itachi came to a clear understanding of his clan's image in the eyes of Hidden Leaf Village as leadership. The Uchiha shinobi who served in the police force were arrogant and domineering, often abusing their authority to punish village citizens and shinobi harshly for any infractions. However, when their own clan members made mistakes, they were quick to show leniency. This disparity in treatment left a bitter taste in Itachi's heart. When facing the unfairness of Hidden Leaf Village's leadership, the Uchiha were quick to voice their outrage during clan meetings, accusing the Hokage and his advisors of discrimination. Yet, in front of ordinary villagers, the Uchiha police force acted no differently from the upper echelons they despised. Hidden Leaf Village's leadership discriminated against the Uchiha, while the Uchiha discriminated against ordinary shinobi and villagers. Realizing this contradiction, Itachi sighed inwardly. He suddenly felt that all his efforts were futile and that life itself held little value. How many people in Hidden Leaf Village truly upheld the will of fire? The surveillance of the Uchiha district continued for 3 long months. During this time, Itachi also undertook several missions assigned by Denzo, eliminating numerous rogue shinobi who had betrayed the village. After killing a rogue genin with his own hands, Itachi wiped the blood from his kunai, collected the forehead protector and severed head, and delivered them to Denzo. Denzo glanced at the severed head before turning his gaze to Itachi. Itachi, you've been with Root for 3 months now. What do you think of our organization? Itachi chose his words carefully before replying. Root is an organization that protects the light from within the shadows. There are things that cannot be brought to light, and only Root has the ability to handle them. Denzo nodded approvingly. You're right. Root's purpose is to do what the Hokage cannot. Only by removing the parasites feeding on Hidden Leaf Village can this great tree stand strong. Even if innocent lives are lost in the process, it's a necessary sacrifice. We cannot prioritize the needs of a few over the well-being of the majority. Do you remember the trolley dilemma I once told you about? Would you save 5 people, or let fate take its course and allow one to survive? Without hesitation, Itachi answered, I would save the 5. I cannot abandon 5 lives for the sake of one. When Denzo had first posed this question, Itachi had chosen to let fate decide. But after completing numerous missions for Root, his perspective had shifted. 5 lives were more important than 1, even if that one person didn't deserve to die. Hearing Itachi's answer, Denzo was satisfied. He knew he had successfully instilled Root's philosophy into Itachi's mind. With this, when the time came for Hidden Leaf Village to act against the Uchiha, Itachi would stand with the village. However, the conflict between Hidden Leaf Village and the Uchiha had not yet reached its breaking point. The Uchiha needed to display their intent to claim the Hokage position before Hiruzen and Sarutobi would be compelled to take action against them. For now, Denzo only needed to keep pressuring the Uchiha and push the police force's spies into action. Eventually, the Uchiha would launch a coup d'état. When the Uchiha attacked the Hokage's office, Hiruzen's Anbu would be crippled from suppressing the uprising. At that moment, Denzo could dispatch Root to clean up the mess. By claiming credit for ending the rebellion, Denzo could impeach Hiruzen and rise as Hidden Leaf Village's 5th Hokage. Shisui was not blind to Itachi's changes over the past 3 months. As Itachi's closest friend, Shisui could clearly sense his growing extremism. Itachi's demeanor had grown colder and more ruthless during missions. Witnessing this, Shisui had tried to persuade Itachi to leave Root, but Itachi refused. Itachi believed that staying in Root had its advantages. If the Hokage faction made any moves, he would be the first to know, and he and Shisui could plan countermeasures to save their clan together. Shisui didn't know how to change Itachi's mind or convince him to see things differently. The Uchiha didn't have to stay in Hidden Leaf Village. They could leave and build a new life elsewhere. Why did they insist on remaining in the Hidden Leaf Village? Torn between his increasingly distant best friend and his stubborn clan, Shisui found himself trapped in a dilemma. In the end, he realized that his only choice was to use the gift he had received from Byakuya and seek help from the one person he couldn't fully understand. Chapter 273, I need your loyalty Byakuya-sama, the Uchiha need your help, Shisui said. Upon receiving Shisui's message, Byakuya opened a drawer full of prepared plans for the night of the Uchiha massacre. He carefully considered which strategy to hand over to Shisui for execution. After some thought, Byakuya destroyed all the plans, dismissing the idea entirely. The Uchiha were never particularly clever, and if they failed to grasp his intentions or botched the execution of his plan, years of his schemes would be wasted. After all, whether the Uchiha survived or perished wasn't particularly important to him. However, if the Uchiha were wiped out, he would lose his opportunity to gain a high-tier Mangekyo reward. Recruiting the entire Uchiha clan under his command would surely earn him substantial benefits. Leaving a wood clone behind, Byakuya summoned White Zetsu, Shiro, and used Mayfly Jutsu to quickly travel toward Hidden Leaf Village. The Mayfly Jutsu was incredibly fast. In less than a day, Byakuya had crossed over 1,000 kilometers to arrive at Hidden Leaf Village. He found Shisui in a clearing within the Forest of Death. The Uchiha prodigy was training his body flicker jutsu, slicing through falling leaves with his kunai while leaving after images in his wake. Byakuya didn't reveal himself immediately. Instead, he manipulated his chakra to summon vines from the ground, which surged toward Shisui. Noticing the sudden attack, Shisui's face darkened. He sliced through the vines with his kunai before shouting into the empty forest, Byakuya-sama, is that you? Recognized so easily, Byakuya stepped out of the shadows and patted Shisui on the shoulder. Guessing my identity based on wood style is a clever move. But remember, I'm not the only one in the ninja world who can use wood style. If you encounter someone else, you might not be so lucky. There are other ninja in the world who can use wood style. And Byakuya's speed, wasn't it too fast? The land of rain was over 1,000 kilometers away from Hidden Leaf Village. Although shocked, Shisui maintained his composure and replied, even if others can use wood style, none are as strong as you, Byakuya-sama. I would never forget your power. Hearing Shisui's unexpected flattery, Byakuya immediately understood how dear the situation had become between the Uchiha and Hidden Leaf Village's leadership. Otherwise, why would the Uchiha lower their proud heads? With this in mind, Byakuya said, Shisui, I much prefer you when you're defiant. That's the true Uchiha spirit we admire. Shisui was briefly stunned, struggling to keep up with Byakuya's unusual line of thought. Clearing his throat, Byakuya continued, Let's skip the small talk. What kind of trouble has the Uchiha encountered that you're coming to me for help? Shizue sighed deeply and recounted the situation with Itachi, how he had joined Root under Denzo and was now being influenced to stand against the clan. Hearing that Itachi, just like in the original timeline, had joined Root and become Denzo's weapon against the Uchiha, Byakuya couldn't help but chuckle. Truly worthy of someone with the Hokage mindset, although it was hard to say whether Itachi followed the ideals of the first, second, third, or fourth Hokage. After a brief pause, Byakuya said, Itachi Uchiha has fallen under Denzo's influence. In the future, he will undoubtedly stand with Hidden Leaf Village's leadership, and he may even act against his own clan. Shizue frowned deeply. Itachi wouldn't go that far. He may not express his feelings well, but he still loves the clan in his heart. Byakuya smirked meaningfully. You'd be surprised. I've dealt with Denzo before. The ninja he manipulates may appear to have free will, but they are nothing more than his tools. However, Denzo's or Itachi's thoughts are irrelevant. What matters is your opinion, Shizue. Why have you sought my help this time, and are you prepared to pay the price for it? Shizue took a deep breath and spoke resolutely. To save the clan, I'm willing to do anything. Even if it means giving you my Mangekyo Sharingan. Mangekyo Sharingan? That's quite a nice pair of eyes. Byakuya gazed into Shizue's eyes, then shook his head. But I don't need your eyes. What I need is your loyalty. Just my loyalty? That's all. Shizue exhaled in relief. He had assumed Byakuya's interest lay in his Mangekyo Sharingan, but it turned out all Byakuya wanted was his and the clan's loyalty. This undoubtedly proved that Byakuya's ambitions were far grander than Shizue had initially imagined. However, what of it? The greater Byakuya's ambition, the more it confirmed that he possessed the strength to match it. If Shizue brought the Uchiha clan under Byakuya's command, they would surely have more room to grow and thrive. Compared to Hidden Leaf Village, which constantly suppressed the Uchiha, Byakuya's Hidden Rain Village would not deliberately stifle their potential. After pondering for a moment, Shizue said, Byakuya-sama, if you are willing to accept the Uchiha, we will pledge our loyalty to you. Byakuya frowned slightly. The Uchiha are under Hidden Leaf Village's watch. Bringing your entire clan out of the village won't be easy. Even if I can lead you away, will your clan members agree to leave? Byakuya's words struck Shizue at the core, leaving him silent. He indeed lacked the confidence to convince his clan. Despite being the strongest within the Uchiha and having awakened the Mangekyo Sharingan, his authority within the clan was limited. Beyond his personal prestige, he did not hold enough sway to lead the entire clan away. Moreover, the Uchiha were a large clan, numbering around 300 members. Of those, only a few dozen were trained shinobi. The rest were ordinary people without any ninja skills. While the Uchiha ninja could leave under the pretense of missions, the non-combatants couldn't. Moving such a large number of people would undoubtedly arouse the suspicion of Hidden Leaf Village's leadership. Realizing this, Shizue suddenly felt that leaving Hidden Leaf Village wasn't a feasible solution. It was riddled with challenges at every turn. Seeing Shizue's hesitation, Byakuya spoke again. From the information you provided, it seems that while the Uchiha and Hidden Leaf Village's leadership are at odds, the leadership isn't yet prepared to move against your clan. Perhaps they are wary of your Mangekyo Sharingan, or maybe they fear that destroying the Uchiha would leave them without enough forces to deter other villages. Either way, you still have enough time to make your move. Pausing for a moment, Byakuya turned to Shizue and said, in the time to come, I will guide you step by step, how to seize power within the Uchiha, how to lead your clan against Hidden Leaf Village, and ultimately, how to achieve your goals. Hearing this, Shizue nodded solemnly and said, then I will leave it to you, Byakuya-sama. Chapter 274, The Fearsome Koto Mitsukami. Days later, under Byakuya's instructions, Shizue arrived alone at the Hokage building. As a member of the Anbu, Shizue's identity ensured that he faced no resistance on his way. He easily reached the entrance to the Hokage's office. Knocking on the door and receiving the third Hokage's permission, Shizue slowly stepped inside. Inside the office, the third Hokage was leisurely playing with his crystal ball, occasionally smiling with satisfaction. Ever since he curtailed Denzo's influence by utilizing Kakashi and Tenzo, no ninja in the village posed a threat to his position as Hokage. Finally, he could relax. Seeing that it was Shizue, the third Hokage put away the crystal ball, frowning slightly. Shizue, why are you here? Is there intelligence about the Uchiha clan that you need to report? Shizue nodded lightly before speaking. Lord Hokage, the dissatisfaction within my clan toward you and the village has been growing. Some radical clan members have even begun discussing a coup and have set a time frame for it. I find the frenzy of these extremists frightening, and I fear that they might. Here, Shizue sighed deeply, as if weighed down by an immense burden. Hearing that the Uchiha were planning a coup, the third Hokage's expression shifted. He had always known that the Uchiha harbored ambitions to claim the Hokage title. But in the past, they relied on elections and peaceful means. Now they were resorting to rebellion. Had it really come to this? He had just dealt a blow to Denzo, and now the Uchiha were preparing to overthrow him? It wasn't that he was clinging to power. It was just that none of you are worthy to be Hokage. Were the Uchiha's strength and achievements truly greater than Jiraiya's or Tsunada's? If the Uchiha led the village, wouldn't the entire Hidden Leaf become as chaotic as the police force? At that point, all his and Tobirama-sensei's efforts over the years would be for naught. Collecting his scattered thoughts, the third Hokage turned to Shizui. Shizui, you've awakened the legendary Mangekyo Sharingan. Even you cannot suppress these radicals? Shizui put on a helpless expression and sighed again. Lord Hokage, I believe it's precisely because I possess the Mangekyo Sharingan that they feel emboldened to plan a coup. The third Hokage paused, feeling a sense of relief that Shizui was on his side. Shizui's demeanor was identical to that of Kagami Uchiha in his youth. If Kagami hadn't died unexpectedly and had become an advisor like Koharu and Hamura, the relationship between the village and the Uchiha might have been far less strained. Feeling nostalgic, the third Hokage spoke sincerely. Thank you for bringing this information to me. I will arrange to meet with clan leader Fugaku soon to ease tensions. In the meantime, I ask that you continue calming your clansmen, persuading them to abandon this coup. If it truly becomes unavoidable, I just hope that day comes as late as possible. Shizui's brows fell, as if wrestling with a decision. Then he said firmly, Lord Hokage, I actually have a way to prevent my clansmen from starting a coup. The third Hokage's face twitched slightly. What method? Taking a deep breath, Shizui explained, Lord Hokage, my Mangekyo Sharingan possesses a technique called Kodo Umatsukami. It allows me to subtly and irresistibly alter someone's will without their knowledge. If clan leader Fugaku refuses to see reason, I can use this ability during a clan meeting to stop the coup. Though Shizui's voice was soft, it was like thunder in the third Hokage's ears. Shizui possessed Kodo Umatsukami, an ability that could rewrite a ninja's will without a trace. This was terrifying. Loosening the fist he had unconsciously clenched under his sleeve, the third Hokage looked at Shizui with newfound caution. If Shizui could control others so effortlessly, he could also control him. The sheer implications of such power were chilling. After a tense pause, the third Hokage walked up to Shizui, placed a hand on his shoulder, before saying, I appreciate your honesty about Kodo Umatsukami, but no matter what, clan leader Fugaku is still one of our own. Your Mangekyo Sharingan should never be used on a comrade. I hope you'll only use Kodo Umatsukami as a last resort. Shizui nodded respectfully. I will heed your wisdom, Lord Hokage. Unless it's absolutely necessary, I won't use this ability. However, I truly wish to prevent a conflict between my clan and the village. It's enough that you care so much. The third Hokage smiled faintly and removed his hand from Shizui's shoulder. I understand the situation now. You can return and wait for good news. Shizui bowed slightly, then exited the Hokage's office. The moment Shizui's chakra signature faded, the third Hokage wiped the sweat from his forehead with a handkerchief, his face pale. Kodo Umatsukami. A Genjutsu capable of altering someone's will undetected. Such a technique was far too dangerous. Even if he trusted Shizui not to act against him, trust and capability were two different matters. The fact that Shizui could control him was terrifying in itself. Fortunately, Shizui had been raised under the will of fire, unwavering in his loyalty to the Hokage. But if Shizui had chosen to side with the radicals, Uchiha-led coup would have plunged the village into chaos, on par with the disaster of the Nine-Tails attack. With that in mind, the third Hokage quietly made up his mind, he would never meet Shizui alone again. If Shizui turned on him, he would have no chance to resist. Reorganizing his thoughts, the Hokage began to deliberate the next step. Should he preemptively expose the Uchiha's coup plans and send a force to wipe them out? Or should he compromise, offering the Uchiha a position on the Council of Elders? If he annihilated the Uchiha, could the village afford the losses? Would other clans grow fearful and distance themselves from the Hokage? But if he gave the Uchiha a seat on a council, would other clans demand similar concessions? And who could guarantee the Uchiha wouldn't press for even greater power, like the Hokage seat? After much deliberation, the third Hokage still couldn't decide. With a weary sigh, he snapped his fingers, summoning an Anbu ninja. Notify Denzo and the other advisors. I need to meet with them immediately. Chapter 275, Denzo's invitation. Half an hour later, root leader Denzo and the two elder advisors arrived at the Hokage building. Once seated, Denzo noticed that the third Hokage's expression seemed off. Frowning, he asked, "Saratobi, what urgent matter prompted you to call us here?" The third Hokage nodded and got straight to the point. "Shisui just came to see me and reported something very important. It concerns the Uchiha. Some members within the Uchiha clan are planning a coup d'etat, a full-scale armed rebellion to seize power and install themselves as Hokage." Hearing this explosive news, Koharu Utatane and Hamura Mitakado's expressions turned grim. Koharu asked sharply, "Is this intelligence reliable? Have the Uchiha truly come to this point?" Denzo scoffed coldly, then said, "Tobirama-sensei always warned us, the Uchiha are an inherently cursed and dangerous clan. Even after gaining control of the Hidden Leaf Village police force, they remain unsatisfied and now aim for a coup. Saratobi, we can't delay any longer. It's time to strike the Uchiha with decisive force." Hearing Denzo's harsh proposal, Koharu and Hamura hesitated. They had considered a forceful approach to deal with the Uchiha before, but the question remained, did they truly have the strength to handle the Hidden Leaf Village police force? If it involved the entire Hidden Leaf Village military, eliminating the Uchiha would be feasible. However, the Uchiha were not an external enemy like the other ninja villages. They were clan within Hidden Leaf Village, and relying solely on their loyalists, Anbu, Root, and the Hidden Leaf Village defense forces, might not be enough. On top of that, disagreements would arise about which forces to deploy. Who would suffer the casualties? If their trusted subordinates bore too many losses, they would risk becoming reliant on other clans in the future. Breaking the tense silence, the third Hokage dropped another bombshell. Aside from the coup, Shisui also revealed a secret about his Mangekyo Sharingan. His Mangekyo possesses a Ganjutsu called Kodo Umatsukami, which can manipulate a person's will without their knowledge. He plans to use it on Fugaku to stop the coup. The revelation of Kodo Umatsukami shocked Koharu and Hamura, who gasped audibly. A jutsu that could rewrite someone's will without leaving a trace? Such a terrifying ability, of all people, it belonged to an Uchiha. If Shisui decided to target the leadership, his power could rival that of Madara Uchiha in his prime. Denzo's face darkened as he processed this information. After a brief pause, he suggested coldly, "We must act against Shisui. His existence poses a greater danger than any other Uchiha. I even suspect that he was behind the Nine-Tails attack years ago. With Kodo Umatsukami, he could have controlled the Nine-Tails or even another ninja to orchestrate that chaos." Denzo's words stunned Koharu and Hamura, who turned their gaze toward Hiruzen. Although Denzo's claim seemed like an attempt to pin the blame on Shisui, there was a twisted logic to it. After all, no one had ever identified the masked man who attacked the village. Shisui possessed the Mangekyo Sharingan and the ability to manipulate others. In theory, he was capable of orchestrating such an incident. Under the intense scrutiny of the others, the third Hokage finally spoke. "The Nine-Tails attack couldn't have been Shisui. Don't forget, he is Kagami Uchiha's grandson, someone raised by those who share the will of fire. He risked suspicion and danger to report the Uchiha's coup and even disclosed Kodo Umatsukami to us. If we doubt him, we doubt the will of fire itself." At the mention of the will of fire, Koharu and Hamura backed down immediately. To them, the Uchiha rebellion wasn't particularly concerning. Even if the Uchiha seized power, they would primarily target Denzo and Hiruzen. The advisors' own positions as council elders would likely remain untouched. Their only concern was whether the chaos could escalate, inviting interference from other villages. Denzo clenched his fists, suppressing his frustration. Glaring at Hiruzen, he muttered, "Your leniency will only embolden the Uchiha further, Saratobi. Mark my words, you will regret your decision." With that, Denzo stormed out of the meeting room without looking back. Hiruzen watched Denzo's retreating figure, a smirk of disdain crossing his face. "The Uchiha want power, but don't you also crave the Hokage's seat, Denzo? The only reason you're not a threat anymore is because you've been steeped in the shadows for too long." Once Denzo left, Hiruzen turned to Koharu and Hamura. "Koharu, Hamura, let's continue discussing the Uchiha. If we offer the Uchiha a position on the council, do you think that will satisfy them?" Leaving the Hokage building, Denzo walked alone through the shadows. Although the meeting had ended poorly, he had gleaned crucial information about Shisui. First, Shisui genuinely wished to ease tensions between the Uchiha and the village, to the extent of revealing the secret of Kodo Umatsukami. Second, this dangerous ability had to be dealt with. Denzo's expression darkened as his mind raced. A Ganjutsu capable of altering a person's will. "Shisui Uchiha, you're far too dangerous to be left alive." At that moment, Denzo made his decision. Shisui had to be brought under his control, one way or another. Second, Shisui's Mangekyo Sharingan houses a technique called Kodo Umatsukami, capable of silently controlling a ninja. This was precisely the power Denzo needed for his own future ambitions. Such a dangerous jutsu simply could not be allowed to remain in the possession of an Uchiha. Denzo also didn't believe the inherently cursed Uchiha could ever coexist peacefully with the village. The clan would never be satisfied with their current position and would inevitably attempt a coup to seize control. With these thoughts in mind, Denzo looked toward the Uchiha district and fell into contemplation. He already had a plan forming in his mind about how to obtain the Mangekyo Sharingan. Inside the Forest of Death, Shizue stared anxiously at Byakuya, who was calmly fishing ahead. Frustration filled Shizue's voice as he asked, "Byakuya-sama, why did you have me reveal the secret of Koto Umatsukami to the third Hokage? Exposing such a jutsu will only make him wary of me." Byakuya reeled in a large fish and glanced at Shizue, who was finally showing signs of strategic thinking. After abandoning that foolish will of fire, it seems Shizue's intelligence has improved. He is even aware that revealing Koto Umatsukami would cause suspicion and fear. That's progress, Byakuya mused to himself. Shizue is slowly evolving into a normal, rational person. After placing the fish into a basket, Byakuya turned to Shizue and said, "The heavens don't reveal their secrets. Give it 2 minutes, and you'll understand why." With that cryptic remark, Byakuya vanished into thin air with his catch, leaving Shizue alone. Still puzzled, Shizue froze for a moment before his enhanced senses picked up movement in the distance. A moment later, a figure wearing an animal mask emerged from the shadows, one of Denzo's root operatives. The root ninja stared coldly at Shizue and delivered his message. "This is a summons from Denzo-sama. He requests your presence at the root headquarters to discuss the future of the Uchiha." Chapter 276, Denzo-sama, what are you planning? Denzo-sama invited me to discuss the future of the Uchiha. Shizue was momentarily stunned before showing a hint of surprise. The root ninja did not elaborate further. He left behind a cold warning, "You'd better arrive on time," before disappearing into the depths of the forest. After the root ninja left, Shizue opened the handwritten message from Denzo. The note detailed the time and location of their meeting. Judging by the handwriting, it was undoubtedly written by Denzo Shimura himself. As soon as Shizue finished reading the contents, the scroll abruptly ignited and turned to ashes. Watching the scroll burn, Shizue fell into contemplation. He had only reported the Uchiha's plans for a coup to the third Hokage this morning, and by the afternoon, Denzo had already sent someone to invite him to a meeting. Wasn't Denzo's intelligence network a little too efficient? And what did Denzo want with him? Was he really interested in discussing the Uchiha's future? Based on the relationship between Denzo and his grandfather, Kagami, there was a possibility that Denzo genuinely wanted to help the Uchiha. However, deep down, Shizue couldn't shake the feeling that this private meeting had ulterior motives. Otherwise, the meeting wouldn't have been scheduled near the Root's headquarters. While Shizue was lost in thought, Byakuya, who had only recently departed, reappeared, this time holding an apple. After taking a bite, he casually said, "Stop overthinking it. Denzo clearly doesn't mean you any harm. He just wants to steal your Sharingan and send you to the Pure Land. What could a kind man like that possibly be up to?" Byakuya's sarcastic tone rendered Shizue speechless, but it also hit the nail on the head, directly exposing Denzo's intentions. But how did Denzo know about Koto Umatsukami? Shizue thought. "I only shared its details with the third Hokage." As if reading his thoughts, Byakuya said calmly, "Shizue, don't tell me you actually believe the third Hokage hasn't conspired with Denzo. The root exists to handle the dirty work the Hokage can't openly touch. The ability of Koto Umatsukami threatens the Hokage. Naturally, he'll look for someone to deal with you. Otherwise, the third Hokage won't be able to sleep at night." Hearing this, Shizue let out a quiet sigh. He had always believed in the third Hokage, believed that his suppression of the Uchiha was only because the clan had acted inappropriately. He had also trusted that the third Hokage was earnestly trying to resolve the conflict between the village and the Uchiha, but in hindsight, it seemed he had been naive and one-sided. Fortunately, he had already chosen a new master to serve. If he had continued to blindly trust Hidden Leaf Village's leadership, both he and the Uchiha would eventually have been destroyed at the hands of the village elders. Clearing his distracted thoughts, Shizue looked at Byakuya and asked, "Byakuya-sama, should I decline the invitation or attend this meeting with Denzo?" Byakuya glanced at Shizue, his mind recalling how things had unfolded in the original timeline. In that world, Shizue had gone to Denzo seeking his help to stop the Uchiha coup. Instead, Denzo seized Shizue's Mangekyo Sharingan. Disheartened and betrayed, Shizue ultimately chose to throw himself off a cliff, ending his life. However, that was the naive, idealistic Shizue of the original timeline. Under Byakuya's guidance, Shizue had long abandoned his blind faith in Hidden Leaf Village and had shifted his priorities to the survival of the Uchiha clan. After a brief pause, Byakuya said, "Of course you should go. I'm curious to see what methods Denzo will use to deal with you. Don't worry, go boldly. I'll be there to clean up any mess that arises." "Yes, Byakuya-sama." After Byakuya disappeared once more, Shizue turned and walked toward the designated meeting location. Soon, Shizue arrived at the meeting location, which was a dilapidated shrine. At the entrance, two grotesque statues stood, and in the open space in front of them, Denzo, wrapped in bandages from head to toe, had been waiting for quite some time. Upon seeing Denzo's figure, Shizue immediately lowered his head and urgently said, "Denzo-sama, did you call me here to help resolve the conflict between the Uchiha and the village?" Denzo scanned Shizue with cold, calculating eyes, like a venomous snake eyeing its prey from the shadows. When his gaze landed on Shizue's eyes, he paused for a moment. Denzo longed to possess Shizue's Kodo Umatsukami. If he had that ability, he could become the fifth Hokage. Pulling his gaze away with some effort, Denzo lightly shook his head. "Shizue, you are a smart boy. You should understand that the conflict between the village and the Uchiha cannot be resolved. Itachi has reported to me about the recent events within the Uchiha clan. The Uchiha aren't just planning a coup, they're already preparing for one. For the peace of the village, neither I nor the Hokage can sit idly by." Shizue's expression darkened, and he anxiously said, "I've already told you, I will use Kodo Umatsukami to control clan leader Fugaku. As long as Fugaku gives the order to cancel the coup, the clan will not rise up." Denzo sneered, looking at Shizue with a pitiful expression. "Shizue, your thinking is too naive. The conflict between the Uchiha and the village cannot be mediated. Even if you control the current Uchiha leader, Fugaku, other radical Uchiha will still step forward. You may be able to control one Uchiha, but can you control all of them?" At Denzo's challenge, Shizue fell silent. After a long pause, he said, "Denzo-sama, I may not be able to control all of the clan members, but is there really no way for the Uchiha and the village to coexist peacefully?" Denzo paused intentionally, then said, "Well, there is a way." Shizue stared into Denzo's eyes, seemingly desperate for a concrete answer. "Denzo, what is the solution? I really need the village's help." As Denzo walked toward Shizue, he spoke again. "If you're willing to hand over your Mangekyo Sharingan, I will resolve the conflict between the Uchiha and the village." Before he finished speaking, Denzo suddenly lunged at Shizue. Shizue's face shifted slightly, and he immediately created distance between them. He briefly glanced at Denzo and, using his Sharingan, took control of him. With a sigh, he said, "Denzo-sama, please take a nap for now. Once I stop Fugaku, I will come back to apologize." However, just as Shizue turned to leave, Denzo, who had been under the influence of the Sharingan Genjutsu, suddenly smiled faintly. In the split second when Shizue wasn't looking, Denzo used the body flicker jutsu. Before Shizue could react, Denzo landed a powerful punch to his abdomen, then reached for Shizue's eyes. Denzo had never expected to steal the Mangekyo Sharingan with mere words. His earlier remarks and the behavior of being controlled by the Genjutsu had all been part of a strategy to lower Shizue's guard. As Denzo's right hand reached Shizue's cheek, intending to gouge out his Sharingan, he suddenly realized something was wrong. With a loud bang, the Shizue he had attacked vanished in a puff of smoke. From a distance, the real Shizue, who had evaded the attack, spoke with a calm expression. "Denzo-sama, what exactly are you planning? How did you manage to break free from my Genjutsu?" Chapter 277, Do you want to become a rogue ninja? In the ninja world, Sharingan Genjutsu isn't considered the most powerful. It can be broken with a simple disturbance in chakra. But the premise is that external help is needed, otherwise, it is impossible to break the Sharingan Genjutsu. This is why the Uchiha clan has always been so strong in one-on-one combat. They are adept at using their Sharingan. However, just now, Denzo had broken free from the Genjutsu in half a second. This made Shizue start to doubt whether Denzo had some special forbidden technique or perhaps even his own Sharingan, which could explain his resistance to the Genjutsu. Before Shizue could dwell on these suspicions, Denzo didn't let him linger on the thought. After failing to land a blow, he removed his eye patch and revealed a crimson Sharingan. The three Tomoe Sharingan in Denzo's eye was rapidly changing before Shizue's eyes, slowly transforming into a normal eye. Shizue's expression turned wary, and he immediately questioned Denzo. "Denzo, why do you have a Sharingan? When you broke free from the Genjutsu just now, you must have used a new Uchiha secret technique." Denzo nodded and spoke openly, without any hesitation. "Indeed, I have a Sharingan, and I've learned some of the Uchiha clan's secret techniques. These techniques were all gifted to me by Kagami Uchiha. He was truly a kind-hearted Uchiha. At the mention of Kagami Uchiha, Shizue's face darkened, and he said with displeasure, "Denzo, you have no right to speak of my grandfather. I will report everything that happened today to the Hokage, and let him punish you. You think you'll be able to leave here today?" Denzo smiled. Though he hadn't succeeded with his surprise attack, he had already laid an ambush in the area. More than a dozen elite root ninjas were positioned around him, and with their combined attack, he could still take down Shizue. "So, you really intend to make a move against me?" Denzo said with a laugh. Shizue drew a short sword from his waist and pointed it directly at Denzo's head. In the next instant, he vanished in the blink of an eye, activating the body flicker jutsu. Dozens of afterimages appeared in the open space, surrounding Denzo. From multiple directions, they began their assault. At the same time, Shizue activated his Sharingan, attempting to use Ganjutsu to interfere with Denzo's actions. But Denzo showed no sign of trying to avoid the attack. After forming hand seals, he took a deep breath, filling his lungs with air, and then suddenly expelled it. In an instant, a blast of wind from his wind-style technique shot toward Shizue. The gust of wind sliced through everything in its path, severing even solid rock with ease. With the enhanced dynamic vision of his Sharingan, Shizue easily dodged the wind blast and quickly closed the distance toward Denzo. Denzo furrowed his brow. He pulled 2 or 3 shuriken from his pocket, infusing them with wind chakra. The shuriken instantly took the shape of blades made of wind, and they shot out in 3 different directions. Under the sharp force of the wind blades, Shizue's afterimages were shredded, leaving only his real body, holding the short sword, still facing Denzo. Feeling Shizue's unwavering gaze, Denzo's expression shifted, fluctuating between uncertainty and determination. After transplanting Hashirama cells, his strength had returned to its peak, but even with that, he still couldn't defeat Shizue in such a short time. This was the terrifying power of the Mangekyo Sharingan. In just a few years of training, Shizue had surpassed Denzo's decades of accumulated strength. Denzo's desire to obtain the Mangekyo Sharingan grew even more intense. Only with that power would he be able to combine the strength of the Senshu and Uchiha clans. Determined not to hold back any longer, Denzo unlocked the seals binding his arm. These seals had restricted the power of the Hashirama cells inside him, as well as kept him from being overwhelmed by them and turning into a tree-like being. Once the seals were released, Denzo would gain access to an immense chakra reserve. Feeling the power that had been unleashed, Denzo bit his finger and slammed it onto the ground. With a puff of smoke, the legendary summoning creature, the Dream Membrane, appeared on the ground. In terms of size, the Dream Membrane was not particularly impressive. It wasn't on the same level as the tailed beasts of natural disaster class, nor was it comparable to the summoning beasts of the 3 great sage lands. However, the Dream Membrane was one of the few summoning beasts that could use ninjutsu, and it was especially adept at wind style, making it a perfect match for Denzo. Seeing Denzo summon his beast, Shizue wasn't about to back down. Drawing upon a large amount of chakra, a greenish-blue projection enveloped his body, transforming into a giant Susanoo, towering over 10 meters tall. Shizue controlled the Susanoo, launching an attack at Denzo and the Dream Membrane by swinging his spiral sword. As the spiral sword struck the Dream Membrane, cracks resembling spiderwebs appeared in the ground beneath it. The creature let out a loud roar and unleashed a violent gust of wind from its mouth, attempting to destabilize the Susanoo. Denzo's face darkened further as he observed this. He was now in a precarious position. He neither had the strength to defeat Shizue nor the desire to let him leave. If he took any further action without thinking, and if Hiruzen Saratobi found out about it, the consequences would be unimaginable. The Uchiha clan would consider him an enemy to the death, and all his plans would be shattered, ending his hope of ever becoming Hokage. Continuing to use Susanoo in his attack, after the spiral sword grazed its nose, the Dream Membrane let out a pained cry. It was already struggling to hold its ground in front of the Susanoo. Denzo, watching the Dream Membrane's predicament, proceeded to remove the seals on his arm. As long as he could remove all the seals, he would still have a chance to defeat Shizue. And he wasn't fighting alone, he had other subordinates. Suddenly, Denzo seemed to realize something. His pupils dilated sharply. They had been fighting for quite a while, but none of the root ninjas he had previously hidden around the area had appeared yet. Could it be that Shizue wasn't alone? Had he brought reinforcements? Recalling their earlier meeting, especially the moment when his ambush on Shizue failed, Denzo quickly replayed the events in his mind. A few drops of cold sweat appeared on his forehead. Perhaps Shizue had known all along that Denzo would make a move here and had made preparations in advance. Wasn't Shizue just a tool of Hiruzen Saratobi, a foolish Uchiha who harbored the will of fire? How could his plans be so meticulous? Could it be that Shizue was truly the mastermind behind the Nine Tails attack? At this thought, Denzo's mind began to consider escape. After giving the dream membrane its orders, he tossed a smoke bomb onto the ground, trying to obscure his movements and leave the area. Just as he attempted to flee, a group of fallen ninjas suddenly appeared in the direction Denzo had intended to escape. These ninjas, wearing animal masks, were all Denzo's subordinates. Standing near them, however, was a young ninja. The young ninja was none other than Byakuya, who had witnessed the entire battle. Byakuya looked at his former superior, slowly speaking, "Denzo, where do you think you're going? After attacking your comrades in the village, are you now trying to escape and flee from your crimes?" Chapter 278, Shizue uses Koto Matsukami. Upon hearing the familiar voice, Denzo's eyes widened in shock as he fixed his gaze on the young boy standing before him. Despite the boy using a transformation technique to disguise himself, his playful demeanor and harmless smile made Denzo immediately recognize him as Byakuya, the very person who had once toyed with him and caused him so much apprehension. But why was Byakuya here? Shouldn't he be in Hidden Rain Village? In that brief moment, Denzo recalled the crucial point. He turned his gaze to Shizue, who was approaching, and grimly asked, "Byakuya, you must be the one behind Shizue's actions." I had always found it strange. Shizue, who had been low-key in the village, suddenly revealed the secret of his Mangekyo Sharingan and made the inexplicable decision to control Fugaku Uchiha. If all of this was a trap set for me, then it all makes sense now. You deliberately made Shizue expose his Mangekyo Sharingan to attract my attention, leading me to believe I had to eliminate Shizue for the sake of Hidden Leaf Village. That's why you arranged this meeting with him. Byakuya showed little reaction to Denzo's words. Byakuya knew what kind of person Denzo was. He always spoke of the will of fire and the ideals of the root, but in reality, it was all about Denzo's personal ambition to become Hokage. More importantly, Denzo had betrayed those who trusted him and had turned his back on the will of fire. In contrast, Shizue's heart was burning with intense rage. He had once trusted Denzo completely, and even when he met Denzo earlier, he still held out a shred of hope. However, that hope was shattered the moment Denzo made his move against him. The subsequent revelation of Denzo's Sharingan and the Uchiha secret technique made Shizue suspect that Denzo might even have been involved in the death of his grandfather, Kagami Uchiha. When Kagami was younger, he was just as talented as Shizue, having unlocked the 3 Tomoe Sharingan at an early age and becoming a member of the Hokage's personal guard. Yet after the 3rd Hokage ascended to power, Kagami mysteriously died while on a mission. If it hadn't been an accident during the mission, Kagami's qualifications should have made him a shoo-in for a high-ranking position in the village. With someone of his caliber, the Uchiha clan wouldn't have found themselves in such a dire situation. Shizue's face twisted into a savage grin. "Denzo, if you didn't covet my Mangekyo Sharingan, how could Byakuya and I have had this opportunity to confront you? And Denzo, how do you explain the traces of wood style on your body?" At these words, Denzo looked down at his arm, where the senju cells had begun to uncontrollably transform it into wood, slowly spreading toward his shoulder. With his life now under threat, Denzo lost his composure and yelled, "Byakuya! Shizue! Even if I die here today, it's for Hidden Leaf Village. Hidden Leaf Village will never forgive you traitors." Byakuya shook his head lightly and walked up to Denzo, crouching down beside him as he began to perform a sealing technique. "I need to correct something," Byakuya said. "I'm not a Hidden Leaf Village ninja, and if we're talking about betrayal, it was Hidden Leaf Village that betrayed the Uzumaki clan, and now they've begun betraying the Uchiha clan as well. The fall of the Uzumaki clan and the plight of the Uchiha clan are both consequences of Hidden Leaf Village's actions." As Denzo felt his control over his body slipping away, his face darkened. "I know your ambitions. You're planning to strike against Sarutobi after my death, so that the Uchiha can take the Hokage position, but the Uchiha will never become Hokage. Without me, the ninja who works quietly in the shadows, Hidden Leaf Village would have been destroyed long ago by countless conspiracies. If you want to secure the Hokage position, you'll need my help." Denzo tried to continue his words, but Byakuya raised a finger, smirking as he replied, "Denzo, your very existence weakens the Hokage's position the most. If it weren't for you, would the Uchiha have came to this point of a coup? This isn't my fault," Denzo continued desperately, "this is Sarutobi's idea. I've always been working for him." Byakuya smiled softly and summoned a mass of vines from the earth, creating a cage around Denzo. When Denzo saw Byakuya use wood style, his expression froze. He muttered to himself, "Impossible. Impossible. How could you possess wood style? That's a Hidden Leaf Village ability. It can't be in your hands." "Why not?" Byakuya retorted. The Uzumaki clan was originally a branch of the Senju clan. When Hidden Leaf Village abandoned the alliance, they also gave up the hope of a resurgence. Shizue and I, one with wood style, and the other with the Mengekyo Sharingan, are the true inheritors of the Will of Fire, of the Senju and Uchiha bloodlines. But you're just a rogue ninja who has recklessly harmed your comrades. After being crushed both physically and logically by Byakuya, Denzo's defenses started to crumble. Indeed, from a bloodline and ability perspective, these two were more like true Hidden Lee village ninjas. However, the Will of Fire had never been about bloodlines, it was about the philosophy of mutual protection and support. Denzo gave up on begging for mercy. He knew these two would never spare him. Since his dreams of becoming Hokage were destined to fail, he would rather die in a grand way, just like the Hokage. As long as he could eliminate these two, the Uchiha would never have a chance to overturn their situation. Those foolish Uchiha would never stand a chance against Sarutobi. Secret Jutsu. Just as Denzo was about to use a self-destructive jutsu, a black rod pierced through his arm, stopping his chakra flow and preventing him from performing his technique. Looking at Denzo's grimacing face, Byakuya coldly stated, "Did you really think you could take us down with a mutual destruction technique? You don't have that capability in front of us." What do you want from me?" Denzo stammered. With a flash, Byakuya broke both of Denzo's arms and legs before turning to Shisui. "Shisui, didn't Denzo want your Koto Umatsukami? Give him what he wants." "Yes, Byakuya-sama." Shisui responded respectfully. His Mengekyo Sharingan began to spin, shifting into the shape of a shuriken, and he used his Ganjutsu, Koto Umatsukami. Chapter 279, From today on, you are Denzo. Upon seeing the shuriken-like pattern in the Mengekyo Sharingan, despair surfaced on Denzo's face. He knew the power of the Ganjutsu Koto Umatsukami, which could quietly alter one's will. He wasn't sure whether his true self would remain after his will was modified. The only thing he could foresee was that his dream of becoming Hokage was completely shattered. From now on, Hidden Leaf Village would fall under the control of the two cunning individuals, Byakuya and Shisui. If even Hiruzen Sarutobi couldn't stop them, then all the efforts of his and Obirama's decades of work would be wiped out. As these thoughts crossed his mind, Denzo sighed deeply, his mind drifting back to past events. What if he hadn't hesitated back then? Would things have turned out differently? With the continuation of Koto Umatsukami, Denzo's eyes gradually lost their light, and he became a puppet, fully controlled by the Ganjutsu. Watching Denzo fall under his control, Shisui finally let out a sigh of relief. Denzo had always been a major force opposing the Uchiha clan, and now that he was under control,